Chapter 850. Tsing Hui, there are currently 19 Supreme Masters of the Chaotic Realm in the Divine Wilderness world. Even if we exclude the 4 Supreme Elders of the Void Sword Pavilion, there are still 15 of them. Although you have become a Supreme Master, you should have just broken through, right? If you want to deal with 15 Supreme Masters alone, I'm afraid. Tsing Hui was silent for a moment and said, although I don't have the decisive means to quickly kill a Supreme Master of the Chaotic Realm, that's because I haven't mastered a powerful killing move. Now, it's not difficult for me to injure them with my strength. Let's dispel their arrogance first, lest they do whatever they want in our Divine Wilderness world. As for other things, give me enough time, and I will find a way to solve them one by one. You mean, if you master a powerful killing move, you have the ability to kill a Supreme Master of the Chaotic Realm? Of course. Tsing Hui nodded. I may have a way to solve this problem for you. Bai Shuaing immediately pondered, Tsing Hui, can you join the Void Sword Pavilion? Join the Void Sword Pavilion? Why? There are 4 extremely powerful killing moves in the Void Sword Pavilion, but these 4 killing moves can only be practiced by the Sword Master himself or the cultivators of the Sword Master's lineage. I relied on the help of my master, the Liha Sword Master, to break through to the One Thought Realm in 100 years, but you became a Supreme Master of the Chaotic Realm in such a short time. Your talent is obviously far above mine. If I recommend you, you will definitely be able to become my master's disciple. At that time, he will teach you this killing move, and you will be justified. The Void Sword Pavilion has a powerful killing move. Tsing Hui frowned, how powerful are those killer moves? In fact, we don't have many dominators in the Void Sword Pavilion. The main reason why we can be famous in many macro worlds and become a first-class force second only to those with great divines is because of these 4 supreme swordsmanship. It is said that these 4 supreme swordsmanship were developed and refined by the founder of the Void Sword Pavilion when the Master of Chaos occupied the chaotic divine realm more than 100,000 years ago. In the end, the Great Master of Chaos personally collected the 4 broken great ways of this world and refined them. Once these swordsmanship are fully cultivated, even if one is in the Dominator realm, he will be able to burst out the power of Tao destruction and have the level to hurt great divines. If someone can refine all 4 supreme swordsmanship and merge them into one, it is said that he will have the invincible power to fight against great divines. Tao obliteration power. Tsing Hui's heart trembled. The Tao obliteration power was just to cut off the great ways. However, the great ways were invisible and traceless. Even if one could temporarily cut off the great ways, the other party could still reconnect it. This ability was at best a threat to Chaotic Realm Supremes who were extremely dependent on the power of the great ways. But the Tao obliteration power was different. The Tao obliteration power was to directly eliminate and erase the power of the great ways and make it return to nothingness. Not to mention Chaotic Realm Supremes, even great divines who had transformed their bodies into great ways could be hurt. If this swordsmanship was used to deal with Chaotic Realm Supremes, it could even directly destroy the great ways possessed by Chaotic Realm Supremes, thereby reducing them from the Chaotic Realm to the realm of One Thought. This ability was far beyond the imagination of Chaotic Realm Supremes who held great ways divine weapons. There is such a swordsmanship in the Void Sword Pavilion. Although Tsing Hui did not want to join a sect and be bound, he had too many secrets. Once the other party used the sect's righteousness to suppress him and force him to hand over his secrets, he might end up becoming enemies. But now, the Divine Wilderness Great World was in danger. If he wanted to solve the current predicament the Divine Wilderness Great World was facing, the best way was to show his powerful battle strength that could kill Chaotic Realm Supremes. With this threat of life and death, he could make those unscrupulous Chaotic Realm Supremes feel fear and have no choice but to withdraw from the Divine Wilderness Great World. As for after they withdrew from the Divine Wilderness Great World, Tsing Hui only needed to find a way to cut off the passage between the Divine Wilderness Great World and the True Sun Great World. Even if those sovereign-level existences wanted to rush from the true Sun Great World to the divine Wilderness Great World, they would still have to spend hundreds of years or even hundreds of years. With that time as a buffer, whether he chose to withdraw from the divine Wilderness Great World or go into seclusion to strengthen his battle strength to deal with more serious threats, he would have enough time to continue to consider. I can join the Void Sword Pavilion, but according to the method you said, those supreme swordsmanship are often mastered by the sovereign-level sword masters and their lineage's direct disciples. The true Sun Great World has already destroyed the world transmission array in a violent way. Unless the cultivators who have been to the true Sun Great World have a spatial divine weapon to travel between the two worlds, it will take decades or even hundreds of years to fly to the true Sun Great World and then be transmitted from the true Sun Great World to the divine Wilderness Great World. This process will take at least decades. This is not in line with my plan. You don't need decades. Bai Shuaing looked at Xing Hui and seemed to have made a decision. I believe that your talent is definitely above mine. Since my master, the Liha Sword Master, has accepted me as his disciple and taught me with all his heart, it will not be difficult for you to become his disciple. I can pass on the exalted immortal slashing path sword art to you now. At the same time, I will also send a message to my master to report your situation and ask him to accept you as his disciple. Will this affect you in any way? Xing Hui frowned. It won't affect you too much. Bai Shuaing shook her head. After pausing for a while, she added, as long as you try to kill those chaotic realm sovereigns who should be killed, it'll be fine. Once they die, even if the news spreads, the Void Sword Pavilion won't punish me, the direct disciple of the Sword Master, for this matter. When Xing Hui heard Bai Shuaing's words, he knew that this matter would be quite troublesome. However, there was nothing he could do at the moment. If he wanted to solve the problem that the divine Wilderness Great World was currently facing, he had to have the strength to kill chaotic realm sovereigns. Only by killing 3 to 5 chaotic realm sovereigns and making them afraid would they withdraw from the divine Wilderness Great World and not dare to stir up trouble in the divine Wilderness Great World anymore. Only then would he have 100 years to recuperate before the ruler arrived. To do this, he had to rely on the supreme sword technique of the Void Sword Pavilion in Bai Shuaing's hands. I will think of a way to modify the celestial slashing path sword technique as much as possible to prevent others from seeing its true form. Bai Shuaing shook her head. The celestial slashing path sword technique is not the sword of sun glory that we cultivated before. The profoundness contained in this sword technique is far beyond our imagination. When I obtained this sword technique, let alone modifying it, even cultivating it has only reached the small success level. It's still too early for me to reach the large success level, let alone complete it. I know you're worried that this sword technique will bring me trouble if it is exposed, but if you cultivate this sword technique to the point where it is unrecognizable and its power is greatly reduced because of this, what's the point of me taking the risk? Qing Su, just focus on cultivating. At the end of the day, this is an internal matter of our Void Sword Pavilion. As long as the two of us display enough battle prowess and talent, and with my master, the Liha Sword Master's guarantee, we might not be pursued too severely in the end. Passing on the supreme sword technique of the sect to outsiders, this was a serious crime. If the people of the Hunyuan heavenly sect were to pass on the black hole scripture, even a part of it, they would face great trouble. This could be seen from Bei Chongguang's fear of this matter, as well as the struggle of the Jin Wu religion's Lai Wuyang to pass on the supreme secret technique of the sect to outsiders. However, at this moment, he really needed this sword art to solve the current crisis that the divine Wilderness Great World was facing. Other than planning to obtain this sword art and change its appearance, he had no better idea. There's no time to lose. Let's go see the people of the Rainbow Sword sect first, and then I'll pass on this sword technique to you. You can stay in the mysterious void world for a period of time. If there's anything you don't understand during this period, you can ask me. Okay. Xing Hui agreed. While chatting, the two arrived at the mountain peak where the Rainbow Sword Master, the Pengguang Sword Master, the Soothing Sword Saint and the others lived. Of course, in the Void Sword Pavilion, the Supreme Masters in the Chaotic Realm were called Sword Masters, and the Dominators who had cultivated the mixed Yuan Holy Body were called Sword Masters. If Sword Master Long Rainbow and Sword Master Pengguang, who were only in the profound Void Realm, called themselves Sword Masters, they would undoubtedly be laughed at. Now everyone called them by their names. When Qing Su and Bai Shuaing arrived at the mountain, they just happened to see a handsome man in white robes gathered together with Chanhong, Pengguang, Fuyin, and so on. He was explaining the wonders of the way of the sword to them. The original sword masters and sword saints of the Rainbow Sword sect were all mesmerized by his words. They were completely engrossed in his words. Many of them looked at the white-robed man with respect and even admiration. Junior sister Shuaing is here. The white-robed man, who was talking about the mysteries of the sword, seemed to sense something. He paused his explanation for a moment, turned his head, and nodded at Bai Shuaing, who was flying over. Even when he saw Tsinghui standing beside Bai Shuaing, he still nodded with self-restraint. He was filled with a gentle and elegant aura like a spring breeze. Junior sister Shuaing, may I know who this is? This is Tsinghui, a great elder of our Hunyuan heavenly sect. He's also a good friend of mine. After Bai Shuaing finished speaking, she turned to Tsinghui and introduced him. This is senior brother Luanyu, who joined the Lihe Sword Master's master at the same time as me. He's also one of the most outstanding geniuses of the younger generation of our Void Sword Pavilion. He can't be called a genius. Every disciple of the Void Sword Pavilion knows that junior sister Shuaing is the #1 genius of this generation. According to junior sister Shuaing's current cultivation, I'm afraid that in less than 1,000 years, you'll have a chance to reach the chaotic realm. If you settle down for another 10,000 years, you'll reach the great completion stage of the exalted immortal slashing path sword art. It won't be difficult for you to become the chief disciple of the Void Sword Pavilion. Luanyu smiled as he spoke, making people feel very comfortable. Tsinghui's gaze fell on the man named Luanyu. This man also had a cultivation base at the One Thought realm. Moreover, his world was more stable than Bai Shuaing's, and the undulations he emitted were also more powerful. However, in terms of sharpness, fierceness, and aggressiveness, his world was far inferior to Bai Shuaing's world. Tsinghui estimated that if the two of them had both cultivated the exalted immortal slashing path sword art, Bai Shuaing would have already reached the small completion stage of the sword art, while he would at most be at the entry level or at the threshold level. Chapter 851. Great Elder Tsinghui. You're finally back. Alas, there's no point in coming back. The current situation of our divine wilderness is really, Sword Master Long Rainbow, Sword Master Pengguang, Sword Saint Chaoyin, and the others looked at Tsinghui, who had returned with Bai Shuaing, with complicated expressions. Even Bai Shuaing, an expert who could be considered a peak great figure in their hearts who had achieved world creation with a thought, could only barely protect a few dozen of them. Qing Su. Even if he came back, what use could he be? After all, before he left, his cultivation was only at the shattering vacuum realm. Even if he, like Bai Shuaing, was taken in as a disciple by a dominator who had cultivated the origin sacred body, at best, he was only at the realm of the shattering vacuum realm. It was useless. Tsinghui's gaze swept over Sword Master Long Rainbow and the others. He could feel the complicated feelings of these people. He sighed, now that the divine wilderness great world is in chaos, what we can do now is to protect our own safety and solve the problem step by step. Solve the problem? Luanyu smiled and said, this is nothing. Although the people of the True Sun Great World destroyed the transmission formation to the outside world, the Lihe Sword Master and the Tsang Tribulation Sword Master of our Void Sword Pavilion are flying towards the True Sun Great World at the fastest speed. They have all kinds of flying divine tools in their hands and will arrive in less than 80 years. When the two Sword Masters of our Void Sword Pavilion arrive, the True Sun Great World, the Jade Capital Great World, the Northern Underworld Great World, the Taihua Great World, the Illusion Great World, and the other great worlds will be easily suppressed and defeated by us. At that time, with the protection of our Void Sword Pavilion, the Divine Wilderness Great World will surely welcome an unprecedented opportunity to flourish. It will be easy for all of you to break through to the shattering vacuum realm in a short period of time and even cultivate the divine true body and enjoy a lifespan of tens of thousands of years. Over the years, Long Rainbow, Pengguang, Chaoyin, and the others had already learned about the strength of the Void Sword Pavilion from Luan Yu and Bai Shuaing. They believed Luan Yu's words without a doubt, especially the members of the Rainbow Sword sect who had been rescued by the Void Sword Pavilion. They all said with anticipation, "I really hope that the two sword masters of the Void Sword Pavilion can come quickly and end the current chaotic situation of our Divine Wilderness Great World." Yes, the other macro worlds are wantonly destroying our Divine Wilderness Great World, making our Divine Wilderness Great World, which has yet to recover, even more broken. Only the Void Sword Pavilion has not offended our Divine Wilderness Great World. It seems that only by following the Void Sword Pavilion can our Divine Wilderness Great World have a way out. Sigh. I really hope that these decades will pass as soon as possible. When Bai Shuaing heard the words of the disciples of the Rainbow Sword sect, she immediately turned to Tsinghui apologetically. The mental pressure they have been facing during this period of time is too great. 100 years ago, the strongest experts of our Divine Wilderness Great World were only a few cultivators of the profound Void Realm. But the enemies now are either top experts of the One Thought Realm or supreme powerhouses of the Chaotic Realm. This is far beyond the limits of what they can understand. If it weren't for the protection of the Void Sword Pavilion, they wouldn't be able to protect their lives even if they were to go to the ends of the earth. This is why they are so dependent on the Void Sword Pavilion, I know. Tsinghui didn't wait for Bai Shuaing to finish speaking and already responded, "I really have to thank the Void Sword Pavilion for their help. Otherwise, there would be nothing left of our Hunyuan Sword sect." The Hunyuan Sword sect, when Sword Master Long Rainbow, Sword Master Pengguang, and the others heard Tsinghui mention the name of this sect, their expressions immediately dimmed. "Grand Elder Tsinghui, it's not that we don't want to protect the Hunyuan Sword sect and continue the legacy of the Hunyuan Sword sect, but, the enemy is too strong. So strong that it's not something we can fight against right now. I understand, so I don't blame you," Tsinghui said. "I remember now. This Sir Tsinghui is the Grand Elder of the Hunyuan Sword sect?" Luan Yu suddenly asked as he looked at Tsinghui, who was conversing with Bai Shuaing and seemed to have a good relationship with her. "Yes." Bai Shuaing nodded. "The son of chaos who has the transformation technique and is suspected to have mastered the dimensional lock. The one whose chaotic realm is over level 60. Junior sister Shuaing. Did you inform the two supremes of his arrival?" Luan Yu's expression gradually became serious. Bai Shuaing suddenly thought of something at this time. Back then, she had protected Sword Master Long Rainbow and the others because she had a close relationship with them. However, because Master Firmament, Master Tsangzhen, Master Zhu Zhao, and even the fallen true god of suffering in the One True God weren't related to the Hunyuan Sword sect, they weren't within the scope of protection she had requested from the Void Sword Pavilion. After all, the Void Sword Pavilion's ability was limited and couldn't offend everyone for the Hunyuan Sword sect. Since Master Firmament, Master Tsangzhen, and Master Zhu Zhao couldn't protect them, then Tsinghui, who was also not a member of the Hunyuan Sword sect. Tsinghui is the fourth Sword Master of the Hunyuan Sword sect. Bai Shuaing said with some displeasure. I learned from the elders of the Hunyuan Sword sect that Tsinghui had only joined the Hunyuan Sword sect for an extremely short period of time. Although he has the title of fourth Sword Master, but, the relationship between you two shouldn't be as deep as imagined. You'd better inform the Supremes of this news first. Although you are a member of the Divine Wilderness Great World and an elder of the Hunyuan Sword sect, your more important identity is now a true disciple of the Void Sword Pavilion. Everything you do should be in the interest of the Void Sword Pavilion first. After Luan Yu finished speaking, he took out a communication jade talisman. Bai Shuaing looked at Luan Yu. With her intelligence, she immediately understood the real purpose of Luan Yu's actions. She immediately said with a cold expression, "I have already explained this matter to Elder Floating Light." "Why, senior brother Luan Yu, are you planning to inform Elder Ichen and Elder Lon Xian about this? Or, if you have any opinions about Master, why don't you ask the elders of Master's side first, but report to the elders of the Zhangzhen Sword Master's side first? If this is the case, I will report this matter to Master at that time." When Luan Yu heard this, the movements of his hands suddenly froze. Although he also had a cultivation base of one thought realm, and his world had already begun to expand, in terms of weight in the mind of the Lihe Sword Master, he was far from being comparable to Bai Shuaing's. Tsing Hui's identity as the 60th level Son of Chaos had been discussed in the Void Sword Pavilion for a period of time. He originally wanted to quickly report this news and receive a reward from the higher-ups, but now that he saw Bai Shuaing's reaction was so great, he was in a difficult position for a moment. If he really offended Bai Shuaing for this merit, in the long run, it might not be a good thing. Just as Luan Yu's mind was quickly thinking about the gains and losses of this matter, more than a dozen figures quickly came from the end of the sky. Not long after, they had already appeared on this mountain peak. The two people in the lead were Elder Ichen and Elder Lon Xian, who belonged to the Zhangzhen Sword Master's side. Seeing these more than a dozen elders and deacons who obviously belonged to the Zhangzhen Sword Master's side, Bai Shuaing's expression froze slightly, but she still politely greeted them, "Greetings to the two elders." "Oh. Bai Shuaing is here as well. That's perfect." Elder Ichen chuckled and said, "Not long ago, I received detailed information from other sources and learned the exact primal chaos grade of the people you've taken in. Their true realms are much higher than what you said, and the number of vessel of Tao they possess is also much higher than what you said. If I'm not mistaken, the vessel of Tao they possess is definitely no less than 1,000. Am I right? 1,000? Heavens! 1,000 vessel of Tao. That's enough to buy a source of Tao. Our cultivations are currently at the peak of world creation with a thought, so if we can obtain a source of Tao, our chances of breaking through to the primal chaos supreme stage will increase to 90%. These people are under our protection, but instead of obediently handing over the vessel of Tao they possess, they're actually occupying a 1,000-year-old vessel of Tao. How preposterous! The world creation with a thought cultivators who had come with Grand Elder Ichen and Elder Lon Xian were instantly displeased. "Grand Elders, where did you learn of this?" When my elders were under the protection of the Void Sword Pavilion, they had already contributed all the vessel of Tao they possessed to the Void Sword Pavilion. This is also the reason why the Void Sword Pavilion agreed to protect their safety. The two Grand Elders were also present at that time, weren't you? What, do you want to go back on your word now? If this matter were to spread, aren't you afraid of being ridiculed by other great sects? Bai Shuaing said. They did turn in more than 600 years old objects of the way to seek the protection of our Void Sword Pavilion, but don't forget that we asked for all the objects of the way they had, and the objects of more than 600 years old were obviously not all that they had. They should be the ones who violated the agreement first, Yi Fuqian said. Elder Ichen said. Elder Lon Xian on the side was even more displeased. Bai Shuaing, don't forget your identity. You were able to cultivate the divine true body from the void-shattering realm to the divine true body in just 100 years, and then condense a small world to become a realm of thought almighty. It's all because of the cultivation of the Void Sword Pavilion. If it weren't for the Void Sword Pavilion, you would probably be like the other cultivators of the divine wilderness great world, reduced to a fish on the chopping block. Now that the Void Sword Pavilion has given you a future and preferential treatment, you should be grateful and try your best to get as many benefits for the Void Sword Pavilion as possible, instead of refuting the decisions of U.S. elders for the sake of the lives of these ordinary people. That's right. Elder Ichen nodded, and at the same time, turned his gaze to the sword masters and sword saints of the White Rainbow Sword sect. Well, hand over all the vessel of Tao you have, and then we'll allow you to continue to live in the small world of the Void Sword Pavilion. If you dare to hide anything, don't blame us for being ruthless. Faced with the threat of Elder Chen, a chaotic realm supreme, the cultivators of the White Rainbow Sword sect immediately panicked. They all hurriedly turned their eyes to Bai Shuaing. However, before Bai Shuaing could speak, Xing Hui suddenly said, "You said that they have thousands of vessel of Tao on them. Where did this data come from? Aren't you afraid that someone is trying to sow discord, slander the reputation of the Void Sword Pavilion, and destroy the unity within the Void Sword Pavilion?" Elder Chen glanced at Xing Hui with some surprise. At first glance, he couldn't see through Xing Hui's depth. He couldn't help but ask, "Who are you?" However, Lon Xian on the side snorted coldly and said, "Our data is naturally reliable. This data comes from a person called Qi Peng. He was a member of this small sect called the White Rainbow Sword sect. How can the data he provided be false?" Chapter 852. Qi Peng. Hearing this name, Sword Master Long Rainbow, Sword Master Pengguang, and the others all looked furious. If it weren't for Qi Peng's betrayal, how could the Rainbow Sword Sect, Sky Dome, and Sword Shadow be trapped by Chaos Holy Master? And now, he, who had escaped the destruction of the Way of the Sky, dared to come out and stir up trouble again. He was courting death. "Where is Qi Peng?" Sword Master Long Rainbow asked angrily. Elder Chen glanced at Sword Master Long Rainbow coldly. A void transformation cultivator wasn't even qualified to talk to him. However, considering that this void transformation realm cultivator might have hundreds or even thousands of Taoist items, he still replied indifferently, "Qi Peng has now been included in our Void Sword Pavilion because of his valuable information. He has received treatment no less than that of a deacon. You don't have to think too much about it. What you need to do now is to open your personal space one by one and let us search carefully." Lon Xian said to Bai Shuaing with some dissatisfaction, "It's already a huge favor for us to protect them under the deterrence of so many primal chaos supremes. If it weren't for them, why would our Void Sword Pavilion be viewed as an enemy by the other organizations? So, the minimum requirement is for them to hand over their objects of Wei. In addition, they also have to hand over their chaotic realm. How could a void transformation cultivator occupy the 30th chaotic realm? That's ridiculous. Many of us in the Void Sword Pavilion can create a world with a thought, and even the elders and supreme elders in the chaotic supreme realm do not have such treatment. They're all my relatives. As elders, you're attacking my relatives. The rules of the Void Sword Pavilion won't allow it." Bai Shuaing said. "Humph, when the time comes, we'll call upon the Council of Elders and let the Council of Elders vote. However, they have to hand over the Tao-carrying items on them. Otherwise, don't blame us for chasing them out to fend for themselves." Elder Chen's eyes flashed coldly as he said this. Obviously, by fend for themselves, they didn't mean to let Sword Master Long Rainbow and the others die on their own. They would hide their identities and kill Sword Master Long Rainbow and the others. Would this offend Bai Shuaing? As a primal chaos realm supremacy, since when would he be afraid of a powerful existence who could create a world with a single thought? Even if she had the Liha Sword Master backing her up, they had the Tsang Calamity Sword Master backing them up. In fact, if they could really take all of these treasures for themselves, their chances of attaining the Origin Sacred Body would definitely increase again. When faced with such a huge matter that would affect their future cultivation, they wouldn't even hesitate to offend the Liha Sword Master, let alone Bai Shuaing. "You," Long Rainbow Sword Master's eyes flashed with a hint of grievance. The others also looked panicked, and their worry was mixed with fear. This was the sorrow of living under someone else's roof. "Oh, you want to expel the people of my Hunyuan sword sect? Before they received your protection, they paid a total of 600 years worth of Tao items. You can expel them, but you have to return the 600 years worth of Tao items." At this moment, Xing Hui stepped forward and said coldly. "Who are you? You didn't answer my question just now." Lan Xian asked. Just when Bai Shuaing was about to say something, Qing Su interrupted her. "I am the great elder of the Hunyuan sword sect. At the same time, you can call me the founder of the Hunyuan sword sect." "Oh. The grand elder of the Hunyuan sword sect. That Xing Hui who obtained an ancient inheritance and is suspected to have reached level 60 in the Chaos Realm." When Xing Hui reported his identity, Lan Xian and Yichen's eyes lit up. Level 60 in the Chaos Realm. This value was a huge temptation to any Chaotic Realm sovereign. Even if it was inherited by half, there would still be 30 levels of Chaotic Realm level 60. If it was sold, it could easily be sold for 2,000 Dao rhymes. This number was enough to make any Chaotic Realm expert fight to the death. However, before they could do anything, Xing Hui had already stepped forward and released the terrifying force field formed by compressing his divine true body to the extreme. It was as if a neutron star or a black hole had appeared out of thin air. Even though Xing Hui deliberately controlled his force field, which was similar to a neutron star or a black hole, to prevent it from affecting the outside world too much, it still caused a storm in an instant. The entire mysterious void world was filled with flowing light, and countless large and small formations were activated immediately as if they were facing a great enemy. In fact, it wasn't just the mysterious void world. The two grand elders, Yichen and Lan Xian, who were covered by Xing Hui's force field, were the first to feel the terrifying pressure from Xing Hui's body. Under the pressure of these two forces, the two had no choice but to reveal their own world energy immediately, causing a world shadow to appear behind them. But even so, the fierce aura and unique repulsive force contained within the pressure continued to attack their bodies, causing them to almost lose control of their strength and erupt with all their might. Supreme Master. Supreme Master of the Chaotic Realm, and the Supreme Master with a powerful inheritance. The two grand elders' faces suddenly changed. The dozen or so elders and deacons behind him also looked as if they were facing a great enemy. "Well, since you plan to expel them, then I have no choice but to ask you for compensation. How many Taoist rhyme items did you give to the Void Sword Pavilion?" Xing Hui said coldly, and the last sentence naturally turned to the Rainbow Sword Master. However, at this moment, the Rainbow Sword Master, the Hunyuan Sword Master, and the Soothing Sword Saint were all a little stunned. They even muttered to themselves, "The aura on Grand Elder Xing Hui's body simply gives me a feeling as vast as the abyss and incredible." What did the two Grand Elders of the Void Sword Pavilion say just now? Supreme Master of the Chaotic Realm? Could it be Grand Elder Xing Hui, he? Grand Elder Xing Hui broke through to the Chaotic Realm and became a Supreme Master. Is this true? On the side, Bai Shuaing looked at Xing Hui, whose aura made the two Grand Elders, Yichen and Lan Xian, feel as if they were facing a great enemy. Even though she had already heard the news, she still felt proud of Xing Hui's achievements. Who said that our divine wilderness great world is weak? In our divine wilderness great world, there are also supreme masters of the chaotic realm. At the same time, she also responded to the Rainbow Sword Master, "We should know best how talented Xing Hui is. Although I am called a genius, it took me hundreds of years to cultivate to the divine realm. But Sword Master Xing Hui, how long did he take? 30 years? 40 years? Or 50 years? Now that more than 100 years have passed, I have already broken through to the realm of creating a world with a thought. It is completely reasonable that Sword Master Xing Hui broke through to the chaotic realm and became a supreme master." When the Rainbow Sword Master, the Hunyuan Sword Master, and the Soothing Sword Saint heard Bai Shuaing's words, they were first stunned, and then, they actually felt that it made sense. Yes, even Bai Shuaing, who took hundreds of years to cultivate to the divine realm, reached the realm of creating a world with a thought. Then, Xing Hui, who only took a few decades to become the strongest person in the divine wilderness great world, now broke through to the chaotic realm and became a supreme master. It was normal, okay? Instead, their current reaction, was it a little fuss? Supreme Master, although the two great elders, I Chen and Lan Xian, were suppressed by the aura emitted by Tsing Hui, considering their current position and the powerful background of the Void Sword Pavilion, the two quickly regained their confidence. Immediately, Elder I Chen said in a deep voice, "What, you, the great elder of the Hunyuan heavenly sect, want to provoke our Void Sword Pavilion? Don't think that you are so great just because you have a chaotic realm cultivation. In our Void Sword Pavilion, there are hundreds of chaotic realm cultivators with cultivation similar to yours. Although you are slightly stronger than us in cultivation, if you think that you can behave atrociously in our Void Sword Pavilion, you are very wrong. So what if there are hundreds of Supreme Masters in the Void Sword Pavilion? Since our Hunyuan Sword sect has invested more than 600 years of Dao items for you to protect our safety, then you should carry out the plan. Do you want to change your mind halfway and temporarily increase the price? Then our Hunyuan Sword sect has the right to ask for the return of the Dao items." "Right, what right? Our Void Sword Pavilion has protected your Hunyuan Sword sect for 10 years. During this period, how many threats and persecutions have we suffered? What's wrong with taking 600 years of Dao items? In addition, during this period of time, in order to protect your Hunyuan Sword sect, many experts of our Void Sword Pavilion have died in battle, including the elders of the Boundary Realm with a thought. Isn't it reasonable to ask your Hunyuan Sword sect to compensate for 1 or 2,000 years of Dao items? You talk to me about rights? What qualifications do you have? You have protected my Hunyuan Sword sect for 10 years and received 600 years of Dao items. During this period, there were cultivators of the Boundary Realm with a thought who died in battle. This loss is transferred to our Hunyuan Sword sect, and you want us to compensate for 1 or 2,000 years of Dao items. I have never heard of this kind of charge even in the Three Realms battlefield. Do you want to know the specific purchasing power of 1 or 2,000 years of Dao items in the Three Realms battlefield? Let me tell you, 1 or 2,000 years of Dao items is more than enough to buy the life of a dominator who has cultivated the Hunyuan sacred body. Are you threatening our Void Sword Pavilion? A cold light flashed in Elder I Chen's eyes. Well, Elder I Chen, don't talk nonsense with him. If it were outside the Xuanxu world, we might be a little afraid of him. But in the small world that belongs to our Void Sword Pavilion, he can't be presumptuous. Directly activate the power of the Xuanxu world to capture him, and then find a way to force the chaos incantation from him. Lan Xian said sternly. Okay. Elder I Chen responded, and a stream of light in his hand went straight to the sky. He was about to mobilize the power of the Xuanxu world to suppress Tsing Hui. But, when this stream of light shot into the void, intending to activate the power of the world formation, there was no reaction at all. Elder I Chen was stunned. He did not believe it and once again used a magic incantation to activate the power of the formation. However, his magic incantation seemed to be blocked by a force. It was fine to activate some 17 or 18 level formations, but it was impossible to activate 19 level formations or even more powerful formations. Very soon, Elder I Chen realized something. He immediately roared furiously at the sky, "Floating light, is this your doing, you old bastard?" Chapter 853. As Elder I Chen shouted, Bai Shuaing quickly put away the communication jade charm in her hand. It was naturally impossible for Elder Floating Light and Elder Flingying to confront Elder I Chen and Elder Lan Xian openly. After all, these two elders had helped the Void Sword Pavilion collect the profits of 600 years' worth of objects of Wei. Even if these objects of Wei came from people close to her, the Void Sword Pavilion belonged to the Void Sword Pavilion. If Elder Floating Light and Elder Flingying stood on the side of Bai Shuaing and Tsing Hui because of this matter, it was equivalent to taking a wrong stand. But if it was just like now, using a reason to mobilize the power of the mysterious void world for their own use to interfere with Elder I Chen and Elder Lon Xian, it was a different matter. Qi Peng is a traitor of the Hunyuan sword sect. He has violated the interests of the Hunyuan sword sect more than once. Hand over Qi Peng and return the 600 years worth of objects of Wei to the Hunyuan sword sect, and this matter will be over. Otherwise, I can't do anything to the Void Sword Pavilion, but I can easily deal with the two of you. Unless you hide in the mysterious void world for the rest of your lives and never go out, Tsing Hui saw that he did not have to face the threat of the formation of the mysterious void world, and he was relieved. How dare you? How dare you? I'd like to see what you're capable of. I Chen and Lon Xian, two supreme masters of the chaotic realm, shouted angrily. They were one step ahead of Tsing Hui and brazenly attacked. The two virtual shadows formed by the two worlds directly became solid and quickly enveloped Tsing Hui. At the same time, the pressure of the whole world surged toward the enveloped Tsing Hui. Even if this pressure came from the inside of the two supreme masters of the chaotic realm, it still caused the mysterious void world to shake. More formations lit up and surrounded the key places of the mysterious void world to protect them from being damaged by the fluctuations of the battle. In addition, there were also many divine true bodies of the Void Sword Pavilion, traversing realms, and even boundary realms with a thought cultivators who rose into the air and looked at the two world phantoms in shock. Clearly, they could not believe that someone dared to fight with the chaotic supremes of the Void Sword Pavilion in their Xuanqiu world. Everyone, I'm afraid you've seen that there are differences within the Void Sword Pavilion. Now that they know the specific number of objects of Wei on you, if they want to force you to hand them over, I can't stop them, and I have no right to stop them. Therefore, the best way is to follow Tsing Hui and get his protection. And be protected by Tsing Hui's protection. That is the only way you can be truly carefree. When the battle between Tsing Hui and the two great elders of the chaotic realm broke out, Bai Shuaing flashed and appeared beside Sword Master Long Rainbow and the others. Among these people, Sword Master Long Rainbow and a few others were better off. The members who had been speaking well of the Void Sword Pavilion and secretly slandering Tsing Hui all lowered their heads guiltily. They were full of regret for their words and actions. As expected, only by following Great Elder Tsing Hui can we have our own way out. No matter what, the others can't be called reliable. Sword Master Long Rainbow sighed and turned to Bai Shuaing. The elders of the Void Sword Pavilion are all so untrustworthy. They go back on their words. Shuaing, you might as well not stay in the Void Sword Pavilion anymore. I am the personal disciple of Sword Master Liha. I cultivate the immortal slashing sword technique. My status is not something that ordinary disciples can compare with. I've already been branded with the Void Sword Pavilion, so I can't easily leave. Otherwise, I'll definitely be hunted down by Sword Master Liha. This is the price I have to pay for cultivating the supreme sword techniques of the Void Sword Pavilion. Bai Shuaing shook her head. After a while, she took out a treasure. This is a miniature world that Tsing Hui secretly gave me earlier. Apart from the fact that it can't compare to the Xuanqiu world in size, it's far superior in all other aspects. I'll put you in it right now. Sword Master Long Rainbow nodded. After this, we'll contact Master Tianxiong and tell them that Tsing Hui has returned. They must be in a very bad situation right now. This can be seen from how carefully they send messages to us through the Chaos Divine Palace. It would be for the best if you could contact them. In order to ensure that nothing goes wrong, they've modified all of their mental imprints and the methods they use to enter and exit their personal spaces. As a result, Qing Su is unable to contact them for a short period of time. Otherwise, he would have gathered Master Firmament and the others a long time ago. Sword Lord Long Rainbow sighed. Not only are they at a high level of primal chaos, but they also carry a lot of treasures with them. Countless paragons are looking for them, so we have no choice but to be very careful. It can't be helped. After that, she quickly turned her gaze to the two worlds that covered each other. She said worriedly, there are two Supreme Masters in the Chaos Realm in the Void Sword Pavilion. Can Great Elder Tsing deal with them alone? Bai Shuaing watched the battle between the three of them. To be more precise, she could only see the two great elders, Lan Xian and Yichen. Qing Su had already been sucked into their worlds. I'm not sure either, but Qing Su has said that regular sovereigns aren't his opponent. It's just because he lacks a powerful killing move that makes it difficult for him to kill them. Even though Yichen and Lan Xian have been accumulating strength for quite some time after breaking through to the chaotic realm, they can't be considered as elites among the chaotic realm. Qing Su should be able to handle them. I hope there won't be any accidents. The Rainbow Sword Master said worriedly. However, she soon realized that her worries were unnecessary. Although they couldn't see the specific situation of the battle, Elder Yichen, who had trapped Tsing Hui in his small world, had a panicked look on his face. Damn it. What's going on? We've suppressed him with the power of our small world, but why can't we sense his specific location? Even in the face of our suppressive force, he actually turned a blind eye. What kind of escape technique is this? Oh no, he's trying to destroy my boundary artifact. Elder Lan Xian, have your world god stop him. Alright, I'll connect to your world now. Elder Lan Xian said. The two worlds instantly overlapped, almost forming a whole. However, the overlapping lasted for less than 10 breaths before the two worlds shook at the same time. Elder Lanxin's world only emitted layers of ripples, but Elder Yichen's world actually shrank by an extremely small amount, forcing Elder Yichen to yell in shock and anger. He activated the might of the Great Way. At that moment, the Great Way appeared. Countless spatial laws flowed in the void like rivers of space, clearly exposed to everyone. Damn it, he destroyed my boundary artifact. Elder Lan Xian, be careful. He's rushing into your world. Quick, expel him. I understand. Buzz buzz. Under the shocked gazes of everyone in the mystic void world, rings of power of the world continuously spread and exploded from Elder Lan Xian's world. In an instant, Tsing Hui's figure was expelled from the small world. However, he did not stop at all after being expelled. He became one with his sword, and like a meteor streaking through the void, he slammed into the barrier of Elder Lan Xian's small world at a terrifying speed. In an instant, the barrier of his small world seemed to have been hit by a terrifying celestial body that was no less dense than a white dwarf. Not only did visible ripples spread out from the surface of the barrier, forming a large crater, but the great Tao precepts inside were also directly smashed into pieces, collapsing one after another. After forcefully smashing through the barrier of Elder Lan Xian's small world, Tsing Hui did not stop at all. He rapidly appeared in front of Elder Lan Xian's boundary artifact. With a slash of his sword, the boundary artifact shattered. The moment the boundary artifact shattered, the balance of the entire world structure was broken. A vortex similar to a black hole rapidly appeared where the boundary artifact shattered. It madly swallowed all the matter in the outside world, and even the structure of the entire world became unstable and shook violently. When this scene fell into the eyes of the cultivators of the Void Sword Pavilion below the realm of world creation with a thought, it was fine. They could not feel the depth of it, but for the deacons and ordinary elders of the realm of world creation with a thought, their faces turned pale. When the boundary artifact of a chaotic realm supreme was destroyed, they could still hold on for a while by relying on the power of the great Tao laws they were compatible with. However, for a powerful figure in the boundary realm with a thought, once the boundary artifact was destroyed, the collapse of the world was almost foreseeable. For a powerful figure in the boundary realm with a thought, the small world was the foundation of their survival. The destruction of the small world meant the end of their lives. From the various means that Tsing Hui had used to destroy Elder Lan Xian, if Tsing Hui wanted to kill them, it would only be a matter of a sword. Even if they used all their strength and exhausted all their means, they would not be able to stop him at all. This is really terrifying. What kind of inheritance did Tsing Hui get? The body movement he used just now gave me the illusion that it was the power of the Great Way. It was as if he was a great divinity and was displaying all kinds of divine powers that only a great divinity could possess. Because of this, Elder Chen and Elder Lanxin's methods were completely useless in front of him and were easily defeated. The only problem is that his strength is countless times weaker than the great way that a great divinity can operate. In the void of the Xuanxu world, Elder Floating Light, who was controlling the formation of the Xuanxu world, witnessed the whole process of the battle between Xinghui and the other two. For a moment, he could not help but feel awe-inspiring. It seems that Xinghui has also obtained an extremely great opportunity in these years. Either he found a cave residence of a great divine and obtained at least 2 great Dao divine weapons, one for attacking and the other for flying, or he became a disciple of a great divine and obtained the true inheritance of that great divine. The former is better, but if it's the latter, then it's frightening. A true disciple of a great divine was much more important than a chaotic realm supreme in the Void Sword Pavilion. If Xinghui really had the identity of a great divine's personal disciple, even if he eventually killed the 2 elders, Yi Chen and Lan Xin, the Void Sword Pavilion would not dare to pursue the matter too much. Especially when he was in the right at this moment. Chapter 854. While Elder Floating Light was shocked by the powerful means displayed by Xinghui, Lan Xin and Yi Chen were already frightened. Among them, Elder Lanxin, who had been targeted by Qing Su and unleashed the power of Dao Severing and was about to completely destroy his world, could not help but cry out, "Floating Light, are you just going to watch us fall into danger and not save us? If our Void Sword Pavilion loses 2 Chaotic Realm Supreme Masters, it will be extremely disadvantageous in the next action of seizing the Divine Wilderness Great World. When a Sword Master comes and realizes that we are not doing well in the Divine Wilderness Great World, you too will definitely not be able to escape the blame." Hearing Elder Lan Xion's shout, Elder Floating Light also felt that it should be about time. He couldn't really watch Xinghui destroy the 2 Supreme Elders, Yi Chen and Lan Xian. On the one hand, this would reduce the power of the Void Sword Pavilion, which was not conducive to the competition for the interests of the Divine Wilderness Great World between the Void Sword Pavilion and the experts of other macro worlds. On the other hand, after all, they were all members of the Void Sword Pavilion. If people knew that they caused him to watch 2 Supreme Elders of the sect die because of their internal strife, he would inevitably be heavily punished. When he thought of that, Elder Floating Light immediately appeared. He said loudly, "Please stay your hand, Green Ruin Swordmaster." The matter of the Hunyuan Sword sect was due to the recklessness of the 2 Sword Venerables of our Void Sword Pavilion. I apologize to the Green Ruin Swordmaster. After Xinghui destroyed the small worlds of the 2 Supreme Elders, Yi Chen and Lan Xian, he also chose to stop. After all, this was the mysterious void world of the Void Sword Pavilion. Once he really wanted to kill the 2 Supreme Elders, Elder Floating Light would certainly not be able to stand idly by. At that time, as long as the other party did not interfere with the power of the mysterious void world, it was enough to make him retreat with the power of the mysterious void world mobilized by Yi Chen and Lan Xian, the 2 Supreme Masters of the Chaotic Realm. As Xinghui stopped, the 2 Supreme Elders, Lan Xian and Yi Chen, looked gloomy. However, they understood that a wise man knew better than to fight when the odds were against him. One by one, they glanced at Xinghui and said coldly, "Good, very good. We will remember this good man." After he finished speaking, he didn't dare to give Xinghui any other reaction. His figure flashed, and disappeared without a trace. Xinghui was too lazy to chase after him. As for the so-called 600-year-old Dao item, before he had enough power to completely suppress the Void Sword Pavilion, it was impossible to get it back. Sword Venerable Green Ruins, that's just how the 2 of them are. They're greedy and insatiable. However, not everyone in our pavilion is like that, so please don't take it to heart, Sword Venerable Green Ruins. If there's time, our pavilion should communicate more with your Hunyuan Sword sect. When Elder Floating Light saw that Lan Xian and Yi Chen were defeated, he was in a good mood. In addition, he guessed that Xing Hui might have the background of a powerful practitioner, so his words were rather polite. Elder Floating Light's words are reasonable. We should indeed communicate more. After Xing Hui finished speaking, he turned to Bai Shuaing. To be exact, he turned to the small world in her hand. Over the years, the Void Sword Pavilion has taken care of the members of our Hunyuan sword sect. Now that I, the Supreme Elder, have returned, it is naturally inappropriate to let them disturb the Void Sword Pavilion too much. I will take them away first. Sword Master Xing Hui, please go ahead. If you need anything in the future, just come to me directly. If we can help with some small things, our Void Sword Pavilion will naturally try our best to help. Thank you very much. After Xing Hui finished speaking, he also said to Bai Shuaing, thank you for giving us a ride. Bai Shuaing nodded and asked Elder Floating Light for instructions. Elder Floating Light naturally would not stop her. He watched Xing Hui leave the mysterious void world with a smile on his face. After Qin Su left, Elder Floating Light slightly restrained his smile. The divine wilderness world has really provoked all the bad guys. However, a rich world that produces 15,000 items of natural way a year. Even the great divine sense would be tempted. It's reasonable for such a situation to occur. I don't know how much profit our Void Sword Pavilion can take in such a big world. Outside the station of the Void Sword Pavilion, Bai Shuaing followed Xing Hui. She seemed a little powerless about what had just happened in the Void Sword Pavilion. Qin Su seemed to be able to tell that she was not in the mood. He could not help but laugh. What's there to be unhappy about? The Void Sword Pavilion is powerful, but we're not weak. Compared to the sovereigns and rulers of the Void Sword Pavilion and the other major worlds, we only lack time. If we have enough time, neither you nor I will pale in comparison to any of the sovereigns and rulers. Don't forget, you're the genius swordmaster Bai Heng. Bai Shuaing was amused by Xing Hui's words. What genius girl swordmaster Bai Heng? The title of swordmaster can only be owned by dominators who have cultivated the immemorial sacred body. If we still call ourselves swordmasters to the outside world, it will only make people laugh at us. And, even if I owe you the originator, it will take me at least thousands of years to cultivate to the level of my master Liha sword master. Thousands of years? Are you still not satisfied with this number? You should know that many practitioners of the divine true body realm are unable to condense a small world in their lifetime and advance to the realm of one thought realm. Among the top masters of the realm of one thought realm, how many of them can step into the chaotic realm? Not to mention the leap from the chaotic realm to the dominator realm. Which realm is not a one-plank bridge for thousands of soldiers and horses? If those old masters of the realm of one thought realm knew that you are distressed over the fact that it will take you thousands of years to become a sword master, they will definitely be furious. I need thousands of years to become a sword master, but you. I haven't seen you for 100 years, and you are already a sword sovereign. You are a sword sovereign in both name and in reality. Compared to you, I am no genius. As Bai Shuaing spoke, her expression quickly became serious. I will now pass on the immortal exterminating Dao slashing sword art to you. However, due to the matter with Grand Elder I Chen and Grand Elder Lon Xian, I'm afraid you won't be able to stay in the profound void world for long. I also won't be able to help you much. You can only rely on yourself to cultivate the immortal exterminating Dao slashing sword art. After all, any of the four Grand Elders can control the power of the profound void world's formations. If they take advantage of the fact that you are in the profound void world to control the formations and attack you, you will be in a very passive situation. I understand. It's enough to have your cultivation experience. That's true. It's not like you haven't surpassed your master before. Back then, I taught you the sword of the glorious sun, but in the end, you gave me several powerful sword techniques that were even more powerful than the sword of the glorious sun in return. Even now, the concepts behind these sword techniques are still very important to me. Bai Shuaing said. Xing Hui nodded. In the technological civilization of the Lord of Time's lineage, the 16th level would be able to use the power of neutron stars. However, if they wanted to completely use neutron stars to create battleships, they would need to reach the 18th level. As for using black holes to create weapons of war, that was something that only the 19th level could grasp. Xing Hui had taught Bai Shuaing the concepts of the glorious sun, solar burst, solar eclipse, and black Sunday. If she could truly comprehend all of them and cultivate them step by step, it would not be a problem for her to reach the chaotic realm. As for the origin saint body, that was not something that he could derive. After all, the reason why he could possess his own way was because of the fortune jade and his epiphany. Otherwise, he might not have been able to reach a level comparable to great masters. Use your heart to comprehend, Bai Shuaing said. In the next moment, she pointed a finger at Xing Hui's forehead. For a moment, the various mysteries of the celestial slashing path sword technique poured into his head and appeared clearly in his mind. As the supreme inheritance of the Void Sword Pavilion, the celestial slashing path sword technique was not recorded in words. It could only be passed on in a one-to-one manner. This method was also the greatest method to ensure that the sword technique would not be leaked. This sword technique, as Bai Shuaing passed on the sword technique to Xing Hui immediately sensed the extraordinariness of the sword technique. The chi of annihilation contained in the sword technique could be said to have pierced through the clouds. Even though he had not cultivated it yet, Xing Hui could sense the extremely shocking offensive and invasive nature of the sword technique. This was a sword technique that did not have any variations. It was an attack and killing technique that was developed to the extreme. In particular, when this sword technique was combined with the broken great Tao of slaughter from ancient times, its destructive power could be displayed incisively and vividly. No wonder. No wonder if this sword technique is cultivated to perfection, it can allow a ruler to threaten a powerful expert. This is just like the ultimate sword Tao. Once cultivated, a celestial phenomenon of heaven and earth can also tear apart the domain of a domain realm cultivator. No, this sword technique is much stronger than the ultimate sword Tao. Although there is a big difference between the celestial phenomenon of heaven and earth and the domain realm, there are still many examples in history of using the celestial phenomenon of heaven and earth to counterattack the domain realm. However, the gap between a ruler who has cultivated the origin sacred body and a powerful expert who has transformed his body into the Tao is almost immeasurable. Even the gap between the golden core realm and the transcendent realm may not be comparable to the gap between a ruler and a powerful expert. In this case, if this sword technique is cultivated to a level that can allow a ruler to threaten a powerful expert, its power can be imagined. Xing Hui was somewhat excited in his heart. More than that, he was looking forward to this sword technique. If he could cultivate this sword technique and rely on the characteristics of his own existence and non-existence to appear and disappear unpredictably and assassinate people, who below the ruler realm would be able to resist him. In fact, if he could cultivate this sword technique to perfection in the supremacy realm, he might even be able to contend against a ruler who had cultivated the origin saint body, such as Zhou Xian. Xing Hui, comprehend it well. If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask me through the Chaos Temple. My personal space in the Chaos Temple hasn't changed. Bai Shuaing said. I understand. There's no time to lose. I'll contact Venerable Master Zhu Zhao and Venerable Master Qianxiong while doing my best to cultivate this sword technique. I have to say that this sword technique of yours is of great help to me. It's good that it's useful. Bai Shuaing smiled faintly before she added, you have to be careful. Many people know that you're a level 60 primal chaos expert. This temptation isn't something that ordinary primal chaos realm supremes can resist. Once your location is exposed, it's very likely that they'll band together to deal with you. Xing Hui couldn't help but chuckle when he heard this. If they band together right now, I'm still somewhat afraid of them. However, as my understanding of my own strength deepens and I cultivate this sword technique of yours, when the time comes, they won't even have the time to hide from me. How would they dare to appear in front of me? Is that so? Then I'll wait for the moment when you show off your might. Bai Shuaing's pretty face was filled with a smile. You'll see. Tsing Hui said solemnly. Chapter 855. The Divine Wilderness Great World. Tsing Hui's figure shuttled rapidly through the void. Back then, the distance of millions or tens of millions of kilometers was not worth mentioning to him now. With his current flying speed, even if he was inside the Divine Wilderness Great World, he could travel back and forth in a day without using spatial travel, not to mention using spatial travel and other techniques. In addition, through his understanding of the Great Tao, he could sense the battle fluctuations that were far beyond his imagination. It could be said that even if he were sitting in the center of the Tianhuang continent and two mighty figures at the boundary realm with a single thought were fighting in the Eastern Wilderness Great World, he would be able to sense it immediately. This realm had already reached the immortal and mortal level that was beyond human understanding. However, his destination this time was not the Eastern Wilderness Great World, but the Hidden Sword Continent. The Divine Wilderness Great World was very important, but it did not mean that the Earth world was not important. With his identity and position, it was already the best outcome for any cultivator of the immortal Tao civilization to not start a war when they saw him. If he encountered some who overreacted and directly ignited their immortal energy, it would not be strange for them to fight to the death with him. Under such circumstances, if he could ask the seven-star sword spirit of the Hidden Sword Continent to come forward and persuade the cultivators of the immortal Tao civilization, things would undoubtedly go much smoother. Unfortunately, when Qing Su truly arrived on the Hidden Sword Continent, basically no disciples of the Hidden Sword sect could be seen anywhere on the continent anymore. Their sect had been destroyed, and there was even a great expert who had reached boundary with a thought leading a group of saints' true bodies and pathfinder cultivators. They dug deep into the ground in search of any place on the continent that might have an item that could carry the way. As for the myriad sword peak that had existed since the Hidden Sword sect was born, its whereabouts were unknown. The seven-star sword spirit is equivalent to a primordial immortal, which is equivalent to a primordial immortal. However, compared to a true primordial immortal, it's no longer at its peak after countless years. When faced with the invasion of many great worlds, it'll most likely choose to temporarily avoid them. If it had fought with a primordial immortal, Bai Shuaing would have mentioned it to me. After all, it's a primordial immortal sword spirit. Tsing Hui paused above the Hidden Sword sect for a moment, a look of regret on his face. Then, his gaze swept over the cultivators of the Hidden Sword sect who were at the One Thought realm, the Divine True Body, and the Traversing realm. The special characteristics that existed and did not exist on their bodies were directly transformed. For a moment, a huge and terrifying pressure suddenly enveloped the entire Hidden Sword Continent. It was like a black hole that devoured everything, emitting a force field that was purely targeted at the entire continent. It directly pressed down on the cultivators of the three great stages from the Divine True Body to the One Thought realm to the point that their bodies almost collapsed. From today onwards, this continent belongs to me. If any cultivator who is not from the Divine Wilderness Great World dares to stay on this continent, they will die. As the aura on Tsing Hui's body erupted, his voice quickly spread throughout the entire Hidden Sword Continent. Buzz buzz. The moment Tsing Hui manifested his aura, the mighty cultivator of the One Thought realm on this continent also erupted his own aura, manifesting the power of the world to resist Tsing Hui's terrifying pressure that almost enveloped the entire continent. At the same time, he said with some difficulty, "Senior, we are from the Dragon God sect of the Jade Capital Great World. Our sect ancestor has already occupied this continent 8 years ago. Until now, with this continent as the center, a radius of 3 million kilometers belongs to our Dragon God sect. If you want to forcibly occupy the territory of our Dragon God sect of the Jade Capital Great World, our sect ancestor, and even our entire Jade Capital Great World, will probably not agree to it, the Jade Capital Great World. You still don't agree?" Tsing Hui's gaze turned and fell directly on the mighty cultivator of the One Thought Realm who had erupted with the power of the world to resist his chaotic realm aura. In the next moment, he stabbed out with his sword. A beam of sword chi shot out with unbelievable speed, easily piercing through the world barrier of the world boundary realm cultivator. The remaining force didn't decrease in the slightest as it slashed into the boundary artifact, instantly shattering it. The mighty cultivator of the One Thought Realm was slightly taken aback when the boundary object shattered. However, as the boundary object was destroyed and a black hole formed from it began to engulf and annihilate the matter of the entire small world, a look of horror immediately appeared on his face. No, Tsing Hui pressed down with his hand, and the terrifying force field that was like a black hole ruthlessly crushed the world of the mighty cultivator of the One Thought Realm, causing his world that was already rapidly collapsing to completely collapse. Even his cries of despair could not be heard as all matter was engulfed and stopped abruptly. If you don't agree, then die. Tsing Hui casually killed the mighty cultivator of the One Thought Realm, and his gaze swept across the remaining experts of the One Thought Realm and the Divine True Body Realm who were filled with shock. That whatever God Dragon Sect ancestor has something against me. Tell him to come find me directly. The surviving experts of the One Thought Realm and the Divine True Body Realm all had pale faces. They did not dare to stay on the Hidden Sword Continent any longer, and did not even dare to leave behind any harsh words. All of them quickly flew out of the Hidden Sword Continent. Just like how Tsing Hui could immediately sense the energy fluctuations of all the mighty cultivators of the One Thought Realm and above fighting on the entire continent, the primal chaos realm supremes of other worlds might not be as sensitive as him, but the nearby primal chaos realm supremes could sense it. Tsing Hui instantly felt at least 3 gazes shooting towards this continent at the same time. Among these 3 gazes, Tsing Hui could clearly sense the anger in one of them. However, other than anger, there was also a trace of fear. With the power that Tsing Hui had just displayed, even the primal chaos realm supremes would have to carefully consider whether a mere hidden sword continent was worth making an enemy of such a powerful primal chaos realm supremes, let alone a peak expert of the One Thought Realm. After ordering all the cultivators of the Hidden Sword Continent who were not from the Divine Wilderness Great World to leave the Hidden Sword Continent, Tsing Hui did not check in detail whether the Divine True Body Realm and the One Thought Realm cultivators had truly left. Instead, he turned and continued flying in the direction of the Eastern Wasteland. Although the Eastern Wasteland was quite a distance away from the Hidden Sword Continent, to the current Tsing Hui, it would not take much time. However, just as Tsing Hui was about to reach the Eastern Wasteland, he sensed the aura of another primal chaos realm supremacy on an island not far from this continent. When he sensed Tsing Hui's arrival, this primal chaos realm supremacy immediately appeared, manifesting a world god with a diameter of over 10,000 meters. Sweeping out a majestic pressure, he blocked in front of Tsing Hui. How should I address you, supremacy? Why are you blocking my way? Tsing Hui asked. Seeing Tsing Hui's lazy attitude, the primal chaos realm supremacy's expression turned ugly, but he still said, I am Hunyuan, the supreme elder of the dream god palace of the illusion great world. The land within a radius of 15 million kilometers belongs to the dream god palace. If you have any business, we can assist you. If not, please return. Dream god palace? Tsing Hui knew that there were a total of 3 factions in the illusion great world. One was the Dream God Palace, which was formed by 3 primal chaos realm supremacies. Another was the Fantasy Moon Paradise, which had 2 supremacies. The last was the Feather Butterfly Palace, whose palace master was the number 1 expert of the illusion great world, Supremacy Mengyu. These 3 factions restrained and attacked each other, and their relationship could not be considered close. However, due to the shocking benefits in the Divine Wilderness Great World, the 3 factions temporarily put aside their differences and were in an alliance. I can't be bothered with your 15 million kilometers of territory, but I want the Eastern Wasteland. Tsing Hui said directly. The Eastern Wasteland. When Huan saw that Tsing Hui wanted to snatch food from the tiger's mouth and occupy the territory that belonged to their illusion great world, his expression turned ugly. Sir, you want to take a continent from the Dream God Palace as soon as you open your mouth. Aren't you looking down on the Dream God Palace a little? Although the Dream God Palace is not a peak faction like the Void Sword Pavilion, we are not weak either. Right now, the three factions of our illusion Great World are in an alliance because of the benefits of the Divine Wilderness Great World. Sir, offending the Dream God Palace is equivalent to making the Fantasy Moon Paradise and the Feather Butterfly Palace your enemy. Please consider the consequences carefully. Do you want to see how long it will take for me to destroy your delimiting item and how long it will take for me to destroy your world? Tsing Hui did not answer Yi Huan's question at all. Instead, he took out the Scarlet Abyss sword and said slowly. A trace of anger flashed in Yi Huan's eyes. I would really like to see the people of our illusion Great World, whoosh. Before Yi Huan could finish his words, Tsing Hui's figure moved. Inconceivably fast, thunderous attacks, and indomitable momentum made him seem like a stream of light, instantly colliding with the world god manifested by Yi Huan. Furious flames burned in the Yinhuan sovereign's eyes, but Qing Su's attack had already completely erupted on his body. Sword chi that could sever the power of ways surged into the air, shattering his connection with the world of his main body in a single instance. Immediately, the world god shattered like a glass statue that had been hit by a bullet, scattering into countless transparent crystals that scattered in all directions. Any one of these transparent crystals contained pure energy. Not only did it have an immeasurable effect on Saint Realm cultivators comprehending the law of space, but it also had an immeasurable effect on condensing a divine true body in the future. If someone could collect all these transparent crystals and make good use of them, it would not be difficult to cultivate tens of thousands of divine true body cultivators. If you have the guts, then try condensing a second world god. After destroying the world god, Tsing Hui continued onwards, gazing in the direction of the eastern wastelands. To no surprise, that was where Yi Huan's true body resided. However, as Tsing Hui flew towards the eastern wastelands, Yi Huan fell silent. After a long while, his voice rang out once more, reaching Tsing Hui's ears. Our illusion Great World's three-sect alliance will not let this matter rest. After that, Sovereign Yi Huan's enormous world, which was like a shadow that covered half of the eastern wasteland, quickly swept away all the cultivators belonging to Dream God Palace. Then, he tore open the void, jumped through space, and fled. Let this matter rest. Tsing Hui stared in the direction that Yi Huan had left in, as well as the gazes of the other sovereigns that were gradually withdrawn. He murmured inside, they won't let this matter rest. As he thought that, he had already arrived in the eastern wastelands. His eyes grew colder and colder as he looked at the vast territory that had been destroyed by the battle between the peak experts. However, just as he was about to begin searching for clues about Nalan Fei's group, he trembled slightly. He was pleasantly surprised. The reconstruction of the immortal ending Dao slashing sword technique has been completed so quickly. Chapter 856. In order to prevent the immortal slashing path sword art from causing trouble for Bai Shuaing, Tsing Hui threw it into the Fortune Jade after obtaining it. With the help of the Fortune Jade's power of deduction, he began to deduce the changes of this sword art. He originally thought that it would take him countless years to deduce a great Dao that was compatible with him. A supreme sword art like the immortal slashing path sword art, which was considered a supreme sword art in the Void Sword Pavilion, would take at least a few years or more. However, he didn't expect that it would only take him one day to depart from Tianhuang mainland to the Hidden Sword Continent and then to the Eastern Wasteland mainland. However, in just one day, the immortal slashing path sword art was actually completed? Could it be that the Fortune Jade has learned to slack off? Don't deduce a sword art that's less than half or even one-third of the original sword art. Tsing Hui's mind turned and quickly focused on the brand new immortal slashing path sword art that the Fortune Jade had deduced. The standard in his heart was that the newly deduced immortal slashing path sword art's power should be at least 80% of its heyday. Only by retaining more than 80% of the original immortal slashing path sword art's power and practicing it to perfection would he have the hope of fighting against a second-level chaos dominator at the first level of chaos. If he couldn't reach this standard, he would rather deduce it again or not deduce it and practice it directly. At worst, he would completely kill anyone who witnessed this sword art in the future. However, from the fact that the Fortune Jade had only taken such a short time to deduce it, the effect might be weaker than he had imagined. As he thought about that, Qing Su had already begun to comprehend the newly derived immortal exterminating Dao sword technique from the Fortune Jade. In just a moment, Xing Hui, who didn't have much hope in his heart, opened his eyes in shock. This sword art, although it took less than a day for this sword art to be deduced by the Fortune Jade, it had been changed almost beyond recognition. Only some shadows of the immortal slashing path sword art could be vaguely seen. This was not the main point. More importantly, this sword technique seemed to be extremely compatible with Xing Hui's own uniting Great Dao. If he could combine this sword technique with his own Great Dao, in terms of power, it would be many times stronger than the original immortal ending Dao slashing sword formula. If I can really master this swordsmanship. No, with the deduction of the Fortune Divine Jade and the combination of it with my own Great Dao, this swordsmanship to me is equivalent to being created by me. Mastering it to perfection is almost a matter of course for me. It's just a matter of how much time I'm willing to spend to verify this swordsmanship. Xing Hui took a deep breath. He couldn't wait any longer. I'll immediately find Nailan Fei and the Zhuo clan. After that, I'll enter closed-door cultivation and master this sword technique. As long as I master this sword technique, let alone the primal chaos supremes currently rampaging in the divine wilderness great world, even if the rulers from other organizations who have cultivated the primal chaos sacred body were to come a few decades later, I might still be able to fight them all. Xing Hui took a step forward and traveled through the void. Very quickly, he arrived at the center of the eastern wilderness. Due to Sovereign Yi Huan's defeat, the Dream God Palace cultivators who had been rampaging in the eastern wilderness had all retreated from the eastern wilderness. Currently, the eastern wilderness could be said to be peaceful. Xing Hui carefully recalled the technique of using spiritual power. Very quickly, his spiritual power spread out like a large net with tiny lattices. It rapidly spread out in all directions. Very quickly, it covered the entire eastern wilderness. Due to the existence of those tiny lattices, Xing Hui couldn't sense cultivators below the immortal realm. He couldn't do it like an immortal cultivator's divine telekinesis, but he could sense all the auras above the immortal realm in the eastern wilderness. Moreover, the stronger the aura, the more obvious the sensing ability. Hunyuan Heaven Sect. Nailan Fei. I found her. She's already cultivated to the divine power realm. It can be considered not bad. This kind of cultivation is more than enough to oversee the eastern wastelands. Very quickly, Xing Hui sensed the location of Nailan Fei's aura. His figure traveled through the void, and very quickly, he appeared in a dense forest. Xing Hui looked at the forest for a moment and felt that it was somewhat familiar. After thinking about it carefully, he immediately remembered that this was the forest where they had first traded with Sword Master Bai Heng. In this forest, there was a huge underground space. The underground space's environment was very complicated. Once they encountered any danger, people could hide inside and avoid being chased by enemies. Although this underground space wasn't much in terms of size to a peak world creation cultivator, and it wouldn't be difficult for them to destroy the entire underground space, just like how there was only one world creation cultivator on the hidden sword continent. In the eastern wilderness, the cultivators who collected Dao-carrying items were mainly at the divine true body and traversal realm. Unless these people knew that there were good benefits in this underground space, they wouldn't spend the effort to burrow underground and search for the cultivators hidden in this space. Whoosh! Xing Hui's figure flashed, and he appeared in the underground space. Some of the basic warning formations set up in the periphery of the underground space were as if they didn't exist to him. He quietly passed through them. Not long after, he had already arrived at the cave where Nalan Fei and the others were. Nalan Fei and the others were not the only ones living in this cave. There were also many higher-ups of the Hunyuan Heaven sect. However, only a handful of them were people that Xing Hui truly recognized. Similar to the original Hunyuan Heaven sect higher-ups, such as the Hunyuan Saint, Elder Qin Lian, Elder Fa Dai, Elder Xing Lu, sect masters Wu Kunlun, and Grand Elder Bei, were all nowhere to be seen. The only ones he was familiar with were Grand Elder Tang Sun, the Sky Origin Peak Master, and a few insignificant members of the Zhua family. Very few of these people had broken through to the Saint stage, and most were limited to the Immortal stage. Who is it? Xing Hui appeared in the underground space. After some time, Elder Tang Sun, who had already reached the never-ending stage, quickly woke up and shouted. Grand Elder Tang Sun, it's me. Xing Hui said as he slowly walked out. Grand Elder Tang Sun's shout had already caused chaos in the underground space. Many people rushed out in panic, but when they saw the figure that had walked in from outside, they were stunned on the spot. Grand Elder Xing Hui. It's Grand Elder Xing Hui. Is Grand Elder Xing Hui really back? Grand Elder Xing Hui. That's great. When the crowd saw Xing Hui suddenly appear, they couldn't hide the joy on their faces. But soon, they seemed to think of something. Although Xing Hui was a legendary figure in the Hunyuan Heaven sect and had made a name for himself in the entire Divine Wilderness Great World, he was so weak that he wasn't even worth mentioning when compared to the invaders that the Divine Wilderness Great World was facing. Even if he really did return, it would only mean one more victim. With this thought, the joy in the crowd's eyes dimmed again. Xing Hui. Big brother, at this moment, two surprised voices came from the crowd again. Nalan Fei and Zhuo Yunqing ran out of the cave at the same time. Xing Hui looked at the two and nodded. It's good that you're fine. We were really worried that we wouldn't be able to see you again. Nalan Fei's expression dimmed. Sect Master, Grand Elders, these people were very valuable to the invaders and were captured. In the end, almost all of them died. Okay, don't worry, don't be sad. This kind of thing won't happen again. I've already settled the matter in the Eastern Wasteland, so you don't have to hide in the cave anymore. If you want to return to the mainland, then do so. If you feel that it's not safe outside, I've also bought a small world. It's like the Hunyuan sacred body of a second-layer Chaos Realm ruler. It has its own space, and the laws circulate endlessly. Things have been settled. What do you mean? Could it be that the legendary sword master of the Void Sword Pavilion has come? Nalan Fei was slightly taken aback and puzzled. After a moment, she said, not long ago, I sensed a huge battle erupting in the direction of the ocean. But the auras of the two sides were too terrifying. Even if I'm inland, I still feel a kind of trembling and fear from my soul. Could it be, the experts of the Void Sword Pavilion are chasing away the invaders from the Dream God Palace? Oh. You've heard of the Void Sword Pavilion? I've heard of it. The Void Sword Pavilion seems to be the only power that's willing to protect the cultivators of our divine wasteland world. However, to obtain their protection, you need to provide an extremely large amount of Dao-carrying items or have the relevant information. And we can't provide so many Dao-carrying items. Zhuo Yunqing answered from the side. The Void Sword Pavilion. They're also one of the invaders. They're not trustworthy. As for the battle ripples you sensed not long ago, it was me fighting with Dream God Palace's Chaos Realm Supreme Yi Huan. In the end, I defeated Supreme Yi Huan. Now, the Eastern Wasteland world is under my control. After Xing Hui finished speaking, Nalan Fei couldn't help but widen her eyes. Xing Hui. You. What did you say? You defeated Dream God Palace's Supreme Yi Huan. I heard. Supreme Yi Huan is an existence that's even more powerful and terrifying than the legendary realm Supreme Yi Huan. You. Why are you making a fuss over nothing? Don't forget that I'm a genius who spent more than 10 years cultivating to become the strongest person in the divine wasteland world. It took me more than 10 years to go from the first level of the immortality realm to the shattering vacuum realm. Now that more than 100 years have passed, is it strange that I've broken through to the Chaos Realm Supreme Hunyuan? Xing Hui tried to speak as casually as possible to reduce their mental pressure. Hearing Xing Hui's words, Nailan Fei opened her mouth, but for a moment, she didn't know how to answer. Going from the first level of the immortality realm to the shattering vacuum realm in more than 10 years was a leap of 15 realms. Then, spending another 100 years to break through to the Chaos Realm Supreme Huan from the shattering vacuum realm was a leap of 4 realms. It didn't seem like something that was incomprehensible. What he said made sense. She really couldn't refute it. She just felt, something was wrong no matter how she thought about it. Alright, there's no time to lose. Let's go out. You can tell them that from today onwards, everyone in the Eastern Wasteland world doesn't need to hide anymore. Chapter 857. The situation in the Eastern Wilderness had calmed down. Although Xing Hui had taken over the 2 continents, the Eastern Wilderness and the Hidden Sword Continent, offending the primes of the Dream God Palace and the Jade Capital Great World, he had not made any further moves after taking over the 2 continents. Moreover, many primes were wary of his powerful battle strength. After realizing that he had no intention of expanding outwards, they tacitly acknowledged his dominance over the Eastern Wilderness and the Hidden Sword Continent. After all, in terms of the size of the entire Divine Wilderness Great World, it was not too much for a primes to take over 2 continents. Moreover, they were not the main continents close to the Tianhuang Great World. I can't stay in the Divine Wilderness Great World for too long. I have to make a trip to Earth to understand the situation. Then, I have to speed things up here in the Divine Wilderness Great World. The sooner I master the improved Absolute Immortal Dao slashing sword technique, the better. Only when I have the battle strength to kill a primes of the chaos can I intimidate the entire Divine Wilderness Great World and expel the invading primes of the Divine Wilderness Great World. Then, the Divine Wilderness Great World will regain its temporary peace. Xing Hui stood on the ruins of the Hunyuan Heaven sect, but his gaze was focused on the Scarlet Abyss sword in his hand. The Scarlet Abyss sword had received the support of his power of ways. In terms of cultivation level, it could actually be regarded as chaotic realm already. However, due to the fact that Qing Su's great way of returning to 1 was just too weak, the Scarlet Abyss sword's true battle prowess was still limited to the level of world creation despite being at chaotic realm despite receiving the support of his power of ways. The growth of the Scarlet Abyss sword spirit, other than its spirituality, also includes its own energy level. Its spirituality can only be slowly nurtured by my sword intent, and no matter how fast it grows, it can't be too fast. But its energy level, it's not impossible. A cold glint flashed in Xing Hui's eyes. Ever since he had cultivated the great Tao of unification, he had tried his best not to use the various immortal techniques and divine abilities he had mastered. There was no other reason, since his great Tao required him to simplify. If he did not adhere to this belief and instead used other divine abilities and immortal techniques, where would the great Tao of unification come from? Over time, his great Tao nomological laws would be affected and his progress would slow. But now, in order for the Scarlet Abyss sword spirit to grow as quickly as possible, to the point where it possessed the true strength of a primal chaos expert, to the point where it could oversee the Divine Wilderness Great World, he had no choice but to use Flower Blooming Moment to refine those Chaos Realm Supremes into Tao fruits for the Scarlet Abyss sword spirit to refine. Now, this is the Immortal Slashing Tao sword technique. No, this sword technique has been remodeled and modified by me. It's no longer the true Immortal Slashing Tao sword technique. If I attain the Great Tao one day, it won't be difficult for me to use this sword technique to slay powerful beings and extraterritorial evil gods. Then, I'll change its name to Immortal Slashing God Sword Qi. Xing Hui said. At the same time, He focused his mental world on the fortune jade, constantly digesting the various mysteries of the immortal-ending god-slaying sword qi that the fortune jade transmitted to him. This sword technique had been repaired by the fortune divine jade, and it seemed to have evolved according to his great Tao. In just a moment, Tsing Hui had already understood this sword technique by heart. Absolute immortal, absolute immortal. The key to this improved sword technique lies in the word absolute. Absolute as in despair, absolute as in hopeless situations. Since I've just started practicing it, I might not be able to annihilate the power of the great path like a great divine ability expert, but I can create a special effect similar to the celestial devil absolute domain. When the sword strikes, it can sever the power of the great path, but it can also seal the power of the great path. Sealing the power of the great path is nothing to a ruler who has cultivated the immemorial sacred body. Their bodies have a natural cycle, so even if the great path is sealed, they won't be affected for a short period of time. But for those primes in the chaos realm who completely rely on the power of the great path to have great divine power, this sword technique is an absolute killer. The greatest characteristic of primal chaos realm supremes was that their worlds were strengthened by the power of great Taos. Not only were they stronger than ordinary small worlds, even if they were penetrated or destroyed, as long as there was an endless supply of power of great Taos, they would still be able to hold on. If their powers of the great path were sealed by Tsing Hui's swordsmanship, primal chaos realm, at most, they would be able to derive a small world to the extreme and create a world with a single thought. Tsing Hui quietly comprehended the sword technique that he had renamed Absolute Immortal and God-Slaying Sword Qi. With the help of the Fortune Jade, this sword technique had long been in perfect harmony with his own great path. As his thoughts turned, countless inspirations came one after another. By the time he had completely comprehended this sword technique, he had already reached the entry level of this sword technique. Although the entry level of this sword technique had enough sealing power, it only gave him the ability to kill primal chaos realm supremes. There was still a certain distance before he could kill primal chaos realm supremes quickly. Therefore, Tsing Hui did not stop cultivating and comprehending this sword technique. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, a year had passed. During this year, Rainbow Sword Master and the others had re-established contact with esteemed Zhu Zhao, esteemed Tianxiong, esteemed Zhangzhen, and the others. Tsing Hui had personally come out and received them into his small world. Although Tsing Hui's small world was only 100 kilometers wide, it was opened by a great divine ability expert. Not only did it have an internal space, but it also had various great path manifestations. Since these great paths were simulated by great divine ability experts, if they were allowed to comprehend these great paths, they would only go astray. However, among the people in the divine wilderness great world, other than Tsing Hui and Bai Shuaing, the strongest was only esteemed Zhu Zhao's divine true body. It was barely enough for them to cultivate in this small world with a diameter of 100 kilometers. Absolute immortal and God-slaying sword qi. Small success. Although it would be easier to kill primal chaos realm supremes if I could cultivate this sword technique to the large success realm, and even if the dozens of primal chaos realm supremes in the divine wilderness great world were to join forces out of fear for their safety, I would still be able to easily defeat them. However, I have already wasted a year and can't wait any longer. Although the divine wilderness great world is important to me, it can't be compared to Earth. A year of delay is already the limit. Tsing Hui stopped cultivating. In addition, there's also that mysterious 7 stars sword spirit. With these primal chaos realm supremes delaying me, I still haven't found its whereabouts. Then, allow me to purge the divine wilderness great world, and then mobilize the power of the entire divine wilderness great world to find the whereabouts of the 7 stars sword spirit. After Tsing Hui finished speaking, he took a step forward and his figure rapidly shuttled through the void. At the same time, he exerted his special ability to exist and not exist to the limit. Not long after, he had crossed tens of millions of kilometers of territory and arrived at the territory of the divine dragon sex ancestor in the Jade Capital Great World. Xing Hui slightly sensed the location of the divine dragon sex ancestor and quietly approached him. His power of the great Tao was to simplify the complex and return all things to one. Along the way, any great Tao law or divine power that encountered his great Tao law would be simplified layer by layer, and finally be swallowed and transformed into a brand new characteristic that was exactly the same as his own great Tao. This power of the great Tao seemed simple, but in fact, it was full of exclusiveness. It should be known that even a beam of sunlight actually contained red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, purple, and many other colors. How difficult would it be to simplify the world and return all things to one? It would not be an exaggeration to say that it was a dictatorship on the path of cultivation. However, right now, Fang Xingjian had relied on this special characteristic of his great Tao to barge into the territory of the divine dragon sex ancestor. It was only when the distance between the two of them was less than 1,000 kilometers that the divine dragon sex ancestor, who was sitting on top of a sacrificial altar in a great hall, seemed to have sensed something. His gaze immediately scanned the surroundings. After realizing that he was unable to get any closer, Xing Hui did not waste any more time. His originally hidden figure suddenly revealed itself, and he was like a fiery meteor that shot out from the void. Bringing with him a sharp sword light that could shatter the void, he brazenly pierced right in front of the divine dragon sex ancestor. To a primordial chaos realm expert who could travel hundreds of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of kilometers in the world, 1,000 kilometers could be said to be covered in the blink of an eye. This divine dragon sex ancestor only had time to shout out, "Who's there?" Xing Hui became one with his sword, and the sharp sword chi that swept out was like a shocking rainbow that cut across the sky, slashing fiercely onto the world's barrier of the divine dragon sex ancestor. Kacha. Accompanied by the soft sound of glass shattering, a hole with a diameter of several hundred kilometers appeared on the world's barrier that the divine dragon sex ancestor had yet to activate to its limits, revealing the blue sky and white clouds within the world. When this scene landed in the eyes of the cultivators in this world, it was as if a crack had suddenly been torn open in the firmament, as if the sky had collapsed. Due to the effect of the collision between the inside and outside of the world, violent air currents gushed in crazily. The living beings in the area that were closer to the world were instantly crushed by the violent air currents that gushed in. However, Xing Hui did not care about the changes in the divine dragon sex ancestor's small world. He pierced through the world's barrier and charged at full speed toward the divine dragon sex ancestor's boundary delimitation item. At the next moment, it was clear that he was going to shatter the divine dragon sex ancestor's boundary delimitation item with a single sword strike. It's you. Isn't it enough that you've taken one of my continents? You actually want to take a mile after taking an inch? Do you really think that I'm afraid of you? Damn it, my world is not for you to be presumptuous. Get out of here. After the divine dragon sex ancestor sensed the figure that had invaded his world, he immediately roared. The power of the entire world surged and exploded violently. It was like a tsunami that continuously attacked Xing Hui's body, vainly trying to force him out of the world. When the tsunami-like power rushed toward Xing Hui's body, it was constantly offset by the Great Tao's rules that had simplified the complexity into simplicity. The Great Tao's rules were transformed into high-energy energy, the high-energy energy was transformed into low-energy energy, and the low-energy energy was transformed into ordinary natural energy that dissipated in the world. Under the influence of this Great Tao's power, not only was Xing Hui's figure not repelled by the divine dragon sex ancestor, but he also took advantage of the opportunity to travel closer to the boundary delimitation item. One person actually withstood the pressure of my entire world. The divine dragon sex ancestor's face was filled with shock. However, his movements were not slow in the slightest. In the center of the tsunami-like pressure of the world, the divine dragon sex ancestors were condensed into a world god that transformed into a towering giant tens of thousands of meters tall. It roared and threw a punch at Xing Hui. Xing Hui looked at the world god and also glanced at the Great Tao's rules that were closely connected to the world god. The next moment, the Scarlet Abyss sword struck out like a bolt of lightning. Once the celestial slashing sword's aura is out, you will be the first soul to die under my sword. Chapter 858. Immortal Slashing Sword Qi. Xing Hui slashed with his sword, and the power of the great path that was constantly supporting the god-dragon Sek's ancestral world was cleared. If it was before, Xing Hui's slash at the falling power of the great path was like cutting water with a knife. Although it could cause the great path law to collapse in a short time, the river that was cut off would eventually be filled up again with the accumulation of the water upstream. The same was true for the power of the great path. But now, what Xing Hui was doing was no longer as simple as cutting water with a knife. With the completion of the immortal slashing sword Qi, when he cut off the endless power of the great path with one slash, it also created a dam that blocked and sealed the great path law that was constantly surging. Perhaps with the passage of time, the dam would eventually collapse, and the power of the great path would once again support the god-dragon Sek's ancestor. But at that time, it was unknown whether the god-dragon Sek's ancestor was still alive. The power of the cutting path? A great path artifact. The god-dragon Sek's ancestor's expression changed slightly when Xing Hui cut off the connection between the world god and the great path law of the outside world. However, he did not care too much. Instead, he operated the world god's power to mobilize more great path law to support the world god's body, and then used the world god's power to completely expel Xing Hui. However, when he planned to let the world god communicate with the great path law of the outside world, the support of the great path law that he received was not even 1/1000th of his peak. This result immediately caused the world god's expression to change. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Xing Hui's figure shuttled through like a sword Qi that tore through the void, directly shooting at the boundary object of the god-dragon Sek's ancestor. The sword Qi exploded, and this barely solid and stable boundary object shattered on the spot. Then, it collapsed and formed a circle of shock waves that could be seen with the naked eye, destroying everything within a radius of hundreds of kilometers. After the dissipated shock waves hit hundreds of kilometers away, it suddenly shrank toward the center of the explosion like a river flowing backward. It crazily devoured all the things around it that could be devoured, and a vortex that looked like a black hole immediately formed. Damn it! What's going on? Could it be the power of the path destruction? No, the connection between my world and the power of the Great Way hasn't been completely severed. But why is it that the power of the Great Way that I'm able to obtain is already close to nothing? The divine dragon Sek's ancestor's eyes were somewhat flustered. At the same time, he stared fixedly at Xing Hui who was in his own world. It's your doing. Die. Accompanied by the roar, the world god swept up a monstrous power, like a giant from the ancient wilderness, and constantly attacked Xing Hui. As he grabbed out, the space within a radius of thousands of kilometers seemed to be frozen, and time seemed to be frozen in this space. Unfortunately, this method could be said to be effective in dealing with ordinary almighties at the world creation realm with a single thought. Even primal chaos realm supremes would be affected, but to Xing Hui, it was not worth mentioning at all. The power of the Great Way of the 10,000 techniques returned to one caused the spatial power that tried to imprison his body to be constantly simplified the moment it got close to him. If the divine dragon Sek's ancestor's strength when he attacked Xing Hui was roughly equivalent to a train, when his attack collided with the omnipresent power of the Great Way on Xing Hui, it became a car. When his attack was about to hit Xing Hui, it became a bicycle. When his attack completely hit the target, Xing Hui, the bicycle became a toy car that was bought with a few dollars. Trains, cars, and bicycles could cause minor or fatal injuries when they collided, but a toy car that was bought with a few dollars could injure someone. That was a fool's dream. This was the tyranny of Xing Hui's power of law. Moreover, this was the external characteristic of his power of law. When this power of law was used on his body, it turned his original body of flesh and blood into a copper head and iron arms, and then it turned the copper head and iron arms into an alloy body. When a toy car collided with a body of flesh and blood, it would no longer have any effect, let alone colliding with an alloy body. The power of the Great Way allowed Xing Hui to easily dodge the Divine Dragon Sex Ancestor's attack. Then, the Scarlet Abyss sword was like a shocking rainbow as it fiercely slashed at the world barrier of the Divine Dragon Sex Ancestor's small world. Sword chi erupted, spanning more than 30,000 miles. A huge sword scar extended to the horizon like a heavenly moat. Rumble. Such a terrifying scar tore through the Divine Dragon Sex small world, causing it to immediately shake violently without the support of the Great Way of the Divine Dragon Sex small world. In particular, the surroundings of the pitch-black crack were constantly collapsing. When matter and energy neared the crack, they were constantly devoured and turned into nothingness, causing the crack to grow larger and larger. Damn it, what kind of divine artifact is this? Divine Dragon Sex Ancestor was shocked and angry. The will of the world god combined with the world power, constantly wanted to capture Xing Hui, but Xing Hui did not fight with him at all. Although the power of the world was surging and pressing toward him from all directions, he was like an arrow that had been shot out, freely shuttling back and forth in this world. Every time he swung his sword, he would leave a sword scar that was tens of thousands of kilometers long in this small world. These sword scars contained the sealing power of the immortal slashing path sword chi, which could not be repaired by the great Tao. In just a dozen breaths of time, the small world of the Divine Dragon Sex Ancestor was showing signs of fragmentation. Stop. Stop. What do you want? This continent? Fine. Fine. As you wish. I'll give you this continent. The Divine Dragon Sex Ancestor looked at his world that was constantly being torn apart and faintly showing signs of collapse, and finally felt fear. This continent? What I want isn't as simple as this continent. What else do you want? I'll give it to you. I'll give it all to you. Do you have to be so ruthless to me? Ruthless to you? Back then when your Jade Capital Great World destroyed the Hunyuan Sword Sect, didn't you also ruthlessly kill the disciples and elders of the Hunyuan Sword Sect? Damn it. A group of cultivators who haven't even reached the boundary realm with a single thought. So what if you killed them? You actually want to kill me to avenge them? If you need it, I'll give you 100 traversal realm slaves. Stop. Stop. Old Ancestor Duan Rui, Old Ancestor White Elephant, quickly come and help me. The words of the Divine Dragon Sex Ancestor were unable to stop Xing Hui at all. Seeing that Xing Hui was still wantonly destroying his world, he finally began to panic and began to call for help. His powerful consciousness rushed into the clouds and rapidly transmitted to Old Ancestor Duan Rui and Old Ancestor White Elephant, who were also from the Jade Capital Great World. In fact, the battle between Xing Hui and the Divine Dragon Sex Ancestor had already attracted the attention of many people. Although the battle broke out in the small world of the Divine Dragon Sex Ancestor at the beginning and did not cause much commotion, as Xing Hui's first sword tore apart the world of the Divine Dragon Sex Ancestor, the commotion here could not be hidden from the nearby primes of chaos. In an instant, at least 5 to 6 primes cast their gazes on the battlefield, including Duan Rui and White Elephant, the 2 primes of chaos from the Jade Capital Great World. However, although the 2 primes of chaos witnessed the battle, they clearly did not expect the Divine Dragon Sex Ancestor to be defeated so quickly. In less than 30 breaths, he was already severely injured to the point where he needed to call for help. This shocked the 2 primes of chaos. Divine Dragon Sex Ancestor, hold on for a while longer. We'll be there soon. I'm on the continent 19 million kilometers away from you. I'll be there in a moment. The 2 primes of chaos heard the Divine Dragon Sex Ancestor's call for help and immediately responded. They moved quickly and headed towards the Divine Dragon Sex Ancestor. Quick! 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 I can't hold on any longer. The divine dragon Sek's ancestor kept shouting. Huge cracks constantly tore through the world barrier of the small world, exposing it to everyone. If not for the fact that he was a primal chaos realm sovereign and that the framework of the small world was made of great Tao laws, the small world would have collapsed long ago. Seeing that Duan Rui and Bai Xiang would not be able to rush over in a short period of time, the divine dragon Sek's ancestor had no choice but to turn to the primal chaos realm sovereign closest to him. You know who he is. He's the supreme elder of the Hunyuan sword sect, a native force of the divine wilderness great world. The Hunyuan sword sect was destroyed by our great world. If I die and our jade capital great world loses, he won't let you off. Hurry up and stop him from continuing his evil deeds. The supreme elder of the Hunyuan sword sect, a native force of the divine wilderness great world, only 10 million kilometers away from the divine dragon Sek's ancestor, primal chaos realm sovereign, hesitated for a breath or two before asking, that supreme elder of the Hunyuan heaven sect is said to be a primal chaos realm sovereign. How strong can he be? You can't hold on for such a short period of time, right? Could it be that there's a conspiracy? There's no conspiracy. There's definitely no conspiracy. I swear to the heavens. Ah. No, I can't hold on any longer. The divine dragon Sek's ancestor cried out in horror. He had never felt so close to death before. Primal Chaos Realm Sovereign seemed to have sensed the despair in the divine dragon Sek's ancestor's words and no longer hesitated. Alright, you hold on. I'm coming to help you. He was less than 1,000 kilometers away from the ancestor of the mystical dragon sect. The exact distance was about 9,600,000 kilometers. It was difficult for a chaotic realm supremacy to fly at the speed of light in a great world. Even if the ancestor of the mystical dragon sect and the other two supremacies of the Jade Capital Great World were setting up a trap, he could make use of this time to observe the situation and figure out what was going on. Even if the ancestor of the mystical dragon sect and the other two supremacies of the Jade Capital Great World were setting up a trap, he could make use of this time to observe and figure out some clues. Quick! 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 The divine dragon Sek's ancestor cried out in horror. At the same time, he rushed toward Primal Chaos Realm Sovereign at his fastest speed, wanting to meet up with him. However, this cry of horror lasted for less than 3 breaths. The divine dragon Sek's ancestor, who was running wildly, seemed to have undergone a drastic change. He could not help but widen his eyes and let out a soul-piercing howl of despair. Rumble. In the shattered world of the divine dragon Sek's ancestor, a huge hole suddenly appeared and crazily devoured the shattered world barrier. It was as if tens of kilograms of antimatter were suddenly thrown into the core of a planet. The entire planet's crust began to distort, collapse, and collapse inwards. The magnificent scene of destruction caused the eyes of the 6 supreme martial artists, who were paying attention to this battle, to widen at the same time. Collapse, the world collapsed. A small world with a diameter of 240,000 kilometers collapsed. The moment the world collapsed, the divine dragon Sek's ancestor, who was running wildly, stopped abruptly in the void. After pausing for only a moment, the divine dragon Sek's ancestor's external body was like a weathered sand sculpture. With a bang, it shattered and turned into ashes. When his external body turned into dust and was annihilated, the small world with a diameter of 240,000 kilometers also completely collapsed, directly evolving into an existence similar to a black hole singularity. In the center of that black hole singularity, a figure strode out. The ripples of the great Tao laws on his body were like the shadows cast by the sunlight, completely devouring that black hole singularity. Chapter 859. It was Tsing Hui who stepped out of the dark singularity. Stepping out of the dark singularity, Tsing Hui's gaze fell on Supreme Yuan, the chaotic realm expert from the northernmost sea world who was the closest to him. At this moment, Supreme Yuan, as well as the other two supreme chaotic realm experts from the Jade Capital World, Ancestor Duan Roy and Ancestor White Elephant, stared in disbelief at the void where the Ancestor of Divine Dragon sect had been. They seemed to want to sense the aura of the Ancestor of Divine Dragon sect from the void, which had nothing left, to confirm that the scene they had just seen was just an illusion. How is this possible, Ancestor of Divine Dragon sect? Has he fallen? Tsing Hui's gaze swept across the remaining 6 supreme chaotic realm experts. Every injustice has its perpetrator and every debt its debtor. I, Tsing Hui, am the supreme elder of the Hunyuan sword sect. The Jade Capital World and the northernmost sea world destroyed my Hunyuan sword sect and cut off my sect's inheritance. This hatred is absolutely irreconcilable. Today, I will kill all the supreme chaotic realm experts from the Jade Capital World and the northernmost sea world in my divine wilderness world as a warning to others. Tsing Hui let out a long howl to show his stance. There were only 6 supreme chaotic realm experts from the Jade Capital World and the northernmost sea world. Now that one of them had fallen, there were only 5 left. It would be easy for Tsing Hui to deal with them. However, if his performance caused all the primal chaos realm supremes to unite against a common enemy, and 10 to 20 of them swarmed him together, he might still be able to rely on his advantage to kill them one by one. However, regardless of whether it was the time he had to pay, the price he had to pay, and the risk he had to take, it was not something that could be compared to his current method of killing them one by one. It was obviously the best choice to temporarily separate them. Sure enough, after hearing Tsing Hui's voice, the 3 supreme chaotic realm experts, who had originally felt a sense of crisis, calmed down a little. However, Ancestor Duan Roy, Ancestor White Elephant, and Supreme Hunyuan, who were in shock, quickly reacted. He wants to deal with the Jade Capital World and the northernmost sea world. I will immediately send a message to the 2 supreme masters of the northernmost sea world. He wants to fight against our 2 worlds alone. Even Sovereign Mengyu of the illusory world doesn't have this ability. As soon as Supremacy Nether Yuan sent the message, he quickly retreated in an attempt to meet up with Patriarch Duan Roy and Patriarch White Elephant. However, just as he was about to retreat, Tsing Hui had already taken a step forward, relying on his non-existent characteristic to close in on Supremacy Yuan like a streak of light, causing Supremacy Yuan's expression to change. What incredible speed! That kind of speed isn't much inferior to that of a sovereign, is it? With a thought, his retreating figure couldn't help but speed up. But no matter how fast he was, Tsing Hui still caught up to him. Tsing Hui, who had become one with his sword, was like an arrow that had been shot from a bow, instantly colliding with Supremacy Yuan's world projection. Even though Supremacy Yuan had immediately manifested the world god in an attempt to stop Tsing Hui from entering his world, it was of no use. Rumble. With a terrifying rumble that caused the void to tremble, the world god that Supremacy Yuan had manifested was like a plank that had been hit by a cannonball, rapidly crumbling. Immediately after, Tsing Hui, who had become one with his sword, fiercely crashed into Supremacy Yuan's world barrier. Like a comet crashing into Earth, a shockwave that could be seen with the naked eye rapidly spread out in Supremacy Yuan's world, covering a radius of several thousand kilometers in the blink of an eye. The entire world was directly penetrated by this attack. Damn it! To think that his true body's strength could reach such a level. He's not walking the path of condensing a small world. Instead, he's fusing the power of his world into one, just like the extreme celestial bodies in the Time King's territory. He's constantly evolving into a white dwarf, a neutron star, and even a black hole. Supremacy Yuan's expression changed drastically. The power of his world continuously surged, and an endless stream of power crazily pressed down, futilely trying to stop Tsing Hui from further destroying his world. However, this battle didn't last for long before Supremacy Yuan's face turned pale. Not good, my boundary artifact has been destroyed. Quick, quick, all of you, come quickly. The boundary artifact has been destroyed. So quickly. Why didn't you mobilize the power of your world to expel him? Ancestor White Elephant, who had rushed over and was relatively close to Supremacy Hunyuan, was slightly taken aback. Do you think I don't want to? I can't expel him at all. I don't know if it's because he has a defensive Great Tao Divine artifact on him or some other reason, but the impact of my world's power on him is negligible. I can't expel him from my world at all. His strength alone has already surpassed my entire world. The expressions of Ancestor White Elephant and Ancestor Duan Rui, who had rushed over at full speed, changed at the same time. Previously, they had thought that Supremacy Hunyuan didn't expel Xing Hui from his world because he wanted to suppress him in his own world so that the two of them could gather the strongest world god to jointly kill him. However, they hadn't expected that the reason Supremacy Hunyuan didn't expel Xing Hui wasn't because he wanted to suppress him, but because he couldn't expel him from his world at all. It should be known that even though a primal chaos realm supremacy could expand their world to hundreds of thousands of kilometers or even hundreds of thousands of kilometers, this didn't mean that they could really mobilize all the power of that world. The range of power they could mobilize was at most 1/4, 1/5, or even less than that of the entire world. However, this was a different story within a world. The level of power that a primal chaos realm supremacy could mobilize in their world was equivalent to 80% or even 90% of the world's power. If this power came crashing down, any world god at the primal chaos realm supremacy wouldn't be able to escape the fate of being crushed to smithereens. Even those peak supremacies whose worlds had expanded to hundreds of thousands of kilometers were no exception. However, now that Xing Hui had invaded Supremacy Hunyuan's inner world, he couldn't even expel him, let alone suppress Xing Hui's true body. Didn't this mean that Xing Hui's strength was equivalent to at least 700,000 to 800,000 kilometers in a small world? A primal chaos realm supremacy whose strength was equivalent to 700,000 to 800,000 kilometers, was this someone that the three supremacies, whose strength was at most only 260,000 kilometers, could deal with? It should be known that a difference of 10 times in diameter meant a difference of 1,000 times in weight. Even if a cultivator couldn't mobilize the power of the entire world at once due to various means and the fact that the cultivator couldn't mobilize the power of the entire world and smash it down, this gap wasn't something that one or two people could make up for. For example, if the moon collided with Earth, it would definitely turn Earth into a sea of fire, exterminating all life on the planet's surface. However, if the moon collided with Jupiter, it would at most cause some ripples. There's actually someone who can expand his world to 700,000 to 800,000 kilometers. How will he cultivate the origin sacred body by then? The larger the world, the more difficult it is to form an internal cycle. To cultivate the origin sacred body in a world of 700,000 to 800,000 kilometers, this level of difficulty is probably comparable to ordinary sovereigns who transform their bodies into the Tao and reach the great God realm. Most primal chaos realm supremacies worlds are limited to 200,000 to 300,000 kilometers in size because this is the easiest area to cultivate the origin sacred body and form an internal cycle. Any primal chaos realm supremacy who expands their world to 500,000 kilometers can no longer be measured by ordinary standards. As for those primal chaos realm supremacies who expand their worlds to 700,000 to 800,000 kilometers, they're usually the type of world protectors who believe that they have no hope of reaching the sovereign realm and only focus on pursuing combat power without caring about their future. If he's a world protector, then it explains why he has such combat power. Even the two of us together won't be enough to deal with a world protector. I feel that we should hurry and establish contact with the other large worlds. Patriarch Duan Rui and Patriarch White Elephant immediately retreated, and their charging figures came to an abrupt halt. This scene shocked and enraged Supreme Hunyuan. He only has a defensive Great Tao artifact on him. How can he truly have a world of 700,000 to 800,000 kilometers? Can't you see that? Don't forget that we destroyed the Origin Sword sect. This person has already declared that he will definitely destroy our Dark North Great World and Jade Capital Great World. Where do you think the two of you can hide? Unless you don't take a single step into the divine wilderness great world in the future, you'll be the next to die after my death. Supreme Hunyuan's words caused Patriarch Duan Rui and Patriarch White Elephant to tremble and come to their senses. Rumble. However, just as they were about to speed up, a pitch-black fissure erupted from Autark Abyss's world along with a sharp sword light. Under this sword light, a small part of Autark Abyss's world seemed to have been sliced apart. A huge amount of matter was constantly escaping and devouring as the fissure appeared. Seeing this scene, Patriarch Duan Rui and Patriarch White Elephant, who had finally felt a trace of hatred for a common enemy, exchanged a glance and turned to leave at the same time. They left without any hesitation and fled without any hesitation. Duan Rui, White Elephant, Supreme Hunyuan let out a roar of anger and despair. His voice was filled with madness. He won't let you go. I'll die, and the two of you will die with me. Rumble. An even more violent explosion spread out from Supreme Hunyuan's small world. More and more cracks appeared as Tsing Hui's sword Qi tore apart this small world. Supreme Hunyuan's fear reached its limit. No. No. Save me, save me. If anyone can save me, I'm willing to give all the Taoist rhymes, divine weapons, and even all the property I've collected over the years to that person. I only ask that person to help me. Supreme Hunyuan cried out in despair. His voice continued to spread in the void and spread throughout the entire divine wilderness great world. The other two primal chaos realm supremes of the dark north great world, who had already received his call for help, rushed over at full speed and roared furiously, "Stop! Stop right now! Tsing Hui, you brat, if you dare to kill the supremes of the dark north great world, the dark north great world will never rest until you're dead." Their voices transmitted over tens of millions of kilometers. Unfortunately, Tsing Hui completely ignored the threat of the two primal chaos realm supremes of the dark north great world. As Supreme Hunyuan's screams grew louder and louder, when his small world was torn to a certain extent, Tsing Hui once again activated his existence, to the extreme. It was as if he had turned into a dark singularity and began to disintegrate this small world that had already been destroyed by him. When this small world was completely destroyed and devoured into a singularity, Tsing Hui's figure appeared again. He then raised his head and looked directly at the two primal chaos realm supremes of the dark north great world, who had stopped abruptly. "It's your turn. One by one, there's no rush." Chapter 860. Void Sword Pavilion. Elder Chen and Elder Lan Xian, who had previously clashed with Tsing Hui, watched the earth-shattering battle in horror. My God! The battle has begun. He is too bold. The two ancestors of the northernmost sea world have already joined Ancestor Duan Rui and Ancestor White Elephant from the Jade Capital world. For Chaotic Realm Supremes have joined forces, yet he still dares to fight them without hesitation. Does he think he can defeat the four Chaotic Realm Supremes by himself? If the highest elder of the Hunyuan Sword sect is really a world protector, he may not be afraid of the four Chaotic Realm Supremes. Elder Chen said. Elder Lan Xian gritted her teeth, I hope he dies in this battle. No, it would be best if he dies together with the four Chaotic Realm Supremes of the Jade Capital world and the northernmost sea world. I hope so too, but since this brat dares to charge at them, he must have a certain degree of confidence in defeating the four Primal Chaos Supremes, mainly because the path he's taking is completely different from the other Primal Chaos Supremes. When the other Primal Chaos Supremes roamed the pinnacle of the realm, their divine true body would erupt and evolve into a minor world. Then, they would comprehend the Great Tao and receive the blessing of the Great Tao to ascend to supremacy. However, he's the complete opposite. He's learning from divine beasts and saint beasts, constantly compressing his divine true body and cultivating it successfully. He's now a Primal Chaos Divine Beast, so how could ordinary Primal Chaos Supremes be his match? I have heard of this kind of body refining sect cultivators. If they want to cultivate from the realm of forming a world with a thought to the chaotic realm, they either have a great opportunity to strengthen their life essence to a level that is not inferior to that of the divine beasts, or even better than that of the divine beasts. Otherwise, they have to invite a great medium to protect them and compress and bless them with the power of the great ways. Only then can they transform their divine true bodies into something similar to the origin sacred body. However, this kind of cultivation method becomes more and more difficult. From the realm of forming a world with a thought to the chaotic realm, they need the blessing of a great medium. If they want to break through from the chaotic realm to the origin sacred body, won't they need the help of an evil god? It's said that one needs the blood of the evil god to cultivate the mixed Yuan saint body. Could it be that this kid believes in the evil god? Elder Ichen seemed to have recalled something. Elder Lon Xian guessed Elder Ichen's thoughts and couldn't help but hesitate. Do you have evidence? Any cultivator above the chaotic realm can pray to His Majesty the Master of Chaos and call out His Majesty the Master of Chaos' true name so that His Majesty the Master of Chaos can send down his divine sense incarnation to investigate. If this kid is indeed a believer of the evil god, it will naturally be a great merit. With this merit, it won't be impossible for us to break through to the level of Sword Master in the future. But if this Tsing Hui isn't a believer of the evil god, then it'll be equivalent to us making a false report. When that happens, we'll definitely be punished by His Majesty the Master of Chaos. Given the weight of the two of us masters, it won't be strange if we're directly executed by His Majesty the Master of Chaos. Hearing Elder Lon Xian's words, Elder Ichen couldn't help but feel a little guilty. Although he guessed that Tsing Hui might believe in the evil god, he didn't have enough evidence. He didn't dare to bet his life on Tsing Hui's life. Moreover, this kind of prayer was based on speculation without any substantial evidence. It was highly likely that His Majesty the Master of Chaos wouldn't respond. After all, compared to the Master of Time and the Master of Gods who were proficient in handling all kinds of matters, their Master of Chaos was actually only good at fighting. This could be seen from the fact that the higher the level, the rougher and simpler the fighting style became. Whoosh! Just as the two great elders Ichen and Lon Xian were talking, a divine sense suddenly broke through the air and contacted the two great elders of the Void Sword Pavilion. The two great elders were slightly startled, but soon noticed the information in the divine sense. According to the incantation contained in the divine sense, they each divided a part of their spirit and quickly entered a small world that had been opened up. Because most of the Sons of Chaos would choose to upgrade their personal space to the 10th level when they were in the traversing realm, it would be easier to step into the realm of one thought world. As a result, if they wanted to communicate smoothly, they couldn't gather in the personal space of the Chaos Divine Hall. Opening up a small world as a temporary communication place was the way most experts in the realm of one thought world and above chose. When the two separated their consciousness doppelgangers and arrived here, there were already an astonishing 8 supreme masters of the Chaos realm here. Including the two of them, there were 10 supreme masters of the Chaos realm here. If the two great elders of the Void Sword Pavilion, Floating Light and Sweeping Shadow, as well as the people of the Jade Capital Great World and the northernmost Great World who were in the middle of the war, all the supreme masters of the Chaos realm who invaded the Divine Wilderness Great World were here. Supreme Immeasurable, Supreme Hongba, Supreme Time, Supreme Yi Huan, the two great elders Ichen and Lon Xian looked at the figures in the small world and couldn't help but feel shocked. Well, the two supreme elders of the Void Sword Pavilion have arrived. Everyone is here. Without further ado, let's get straight to the point. The main purpose of gathering you here is to ask you to consider whether we should help Duan Rui and Bai Xiang, the two supreme masters. With the arrival of the two great elders Ichen and Lon Xian, Supreme Time, who had the highest cultivation and had already expanded his world to 330,000 kilometers, was the first to speak. Are we going to help Duan Rui and Bai Xiang? The great elder of the Hunyuan sword sect, Tsing Hui, has made it very clear that his main purpose of targeting the Jade Capital Great World and the northernmost Great World is to take revenge. After all, the Hunyuan sword sect was destroyed by the Jade Capital Great World and the northernmost Great World. Many of the higher-ups of the Hunyuan sword sect were killed or captured by the masters of the two great worlds. In the battle that defeated the Hunyuan sword sect, the Jade Capital Great World and the Northernmost Great World obtained at least 3,000 to 4,000 carrier items each. When they obtained the carrier items, we didn't see them share the benefits with us. Now that they have come to take revenge, why should we meddle in their business? Supreme Master Cheong Yu of the Tai Hua Great World said. That's true, but we can't just watch Tsing Hui act presumptuously in front of us. Don't forget, for the Divine Wilderness Great World, Tsing Hui is a native, and we are foreign invaders. We are innately hostile to him. At present, he is still dealing with the great masters of the Jade Capital Great World and the Northernmost Great World under the pretext of taking revenge for the Hunyuan sword sect. Who can guarantee that after he has dealt with the two great masters of the Chaos Realm of the Jade Capital Great World and the Northernmost Great World, he won't come after us? After he has defeated and weakened us one by one, it won't be easy for us to join forces to deal with him. Supreme Master Yi Huan of the Dream God Palace, who had a conflict with Tsing Hui before, immediately retorted. Supreme Master Yi Huan and Supreme Tsing Hui have had a conflict before, so they naturally want to use this opportunity to wash away their disgrace. However, we don't have too serious a conflict with him. Supreme Tsing Hui may have the identity of a native great master of the Divine Wilderness Great World, but I believe that he also understands what will happen if he really intends to become enemies with all of us. I believe that when the time comes, he will make the right choice. This can be seen from the fact that he has only occupied 2 continents after coming to the Divine Wilderness Great World. The reason why he has only occupied 2 continents is because he doesn't have the ability to do so. When he really has the ability to occupy the entire Divine Wilderness Great World, do you think he will be willing to share the Divine Wilderness Great World with us, which produces more than 10,000 items of the way every year? In the past 10 years, which of us great masters has not earned more than 3,000 items of the way every year? And this is because some of our subordinates have secretly embezzled quite a few items of the way. Otherwise, it would not have been difficult for us to earn more than 4,000 items of the way every year. Who wouldn't be tempted by such enormous benefits? I agree with Supreme Master Yi Huan, but, dealing with Tsing Hui is not a problem, but, who has the confidence to deal with Tsing Hui? Tsing Hui has either obtained an extremely formidable inheritance and grasped a top-notch divine ability, or he has a great Tao divine tool. It is precisely because of this that he has been able to succeed in every battle with us. Moreover, according to the information we have obtained, his primal chaos level is at least the 60th level. In other words, he has all sorts of special abilities such as divine techniques, teleportation techniques, and so on. Once he is in danger, he will immediately use teleportation techniques to escape. How can we stop him from leaving? Supreme Master Wu Liang's words make sense. I'm just afraid that Tsing Hui will engage in guerrilla warfare with us. Every time he ambushes 1 or 2 of our great masters, he will immediately turn and flee when we surround him. Over time, within a few years, I'm afraid the dozen of us will be dragged to death by him. Yes, we must pay attention to this problem. If we can't avoid the problem of his escape, we won't be able to kill him. If we can't kill him with his strength, he is a fatal threat to all of us. In the meeting, the various primal chaos supremes spoke one after another, hesitating and deadlocked. At this time, Supreme Master Time seemed to have sensed something in his expression changed abruptly. Supreme Master White Elephant has fallen. Not good, everyone. What we need to discuss now is whether we should act together to rescue the Northernmost Sea Macro World and the Jade Capital Macro World, not engage in meaningless quarrels. Patriarch Shui Kun of the Northernmost Sea Macro World is also so fast. He wasn't this fast when he killed Supreme Master Nether Yuan and the Divine Dragon Sect Patriarch. Now, is he hiding his strength? Why would he hide his strength? Needless to say, he must be wary of us joining forces, so he wasn't willing to go all out in the beginning and misled us. Supreme Master Time's expression immediately turned ugly. Everyone, this matter shouldn't be delayed. We can't let him continue killing Supreme Master Duan Rui and 100 Poison Ancestor. I have to act as soon as possible to stop him from continuing. Alright, but I'm a little far from where he is. It should take me 100 breaths to get there. You guys go first. I'm also a little far away. Whoever is the closest to me will go and rescue Supreme Master Duan Rui and 100 Poison Ancestor quickly. I'm held up by some matters. You guys go first, I'll be right behind you. Several Primal Chaos Supremes expressed their opinions almost simultaneously. But after a while, the supreme martial artists present also fell into an awkward silence. After a while, Supreme Master Duan Rui was sealed by the freezing art, 100 Poison Ancestor was locked by the dimensional lock. In the end, they died in despair. Chapter 861. When a cultivator reached the realm of world creation with a thought, they were no longer pure life forms. The characteristics of the Son of Chaos tacitly recognized their life forms as their small worlds. In other words, when they used the teleportation technique, the power of the teleportation technique tacitly recognized their small worlds to be teleported along with them. Under such circumstances, there was no meaning in using the teleportation technique to escape. This was the reason why Tsing Hui was able to successfully kill the ancestor of Divine Dragon Sect and Supreme Hunyuan, and why these two Primal Chaos Realm Supremes did not use the teleportation technique to escape. They knew very well that they could not escape. As for the remaining ancestor Duan Rui, White Elephant Ancestor, 100 Poison Ancestor, and Blood Kun Ancestor, when White Elephant Ancestor died, the remaining three wanted to escape. However, they could not withstand the combination of Tsing Hui's backtrack technique, freeze technique, and dimensional lock. By the time they decided to use the teleportation technique to save their lives, they were already powerless. In the end, the three of them died one after another. When the Primal Chaos Realm Supremes in the small world conference room saw this scene, for a moment, they looked at each other. While they were shocked, they also felt a strong sense of fear towards Tsing Hui. Under this fear, the Primal Chaos Realm Supremes, who originally occupied a radius of tens of millions of kilometers, quickly gathered in twos and threes. Even though 2 or 3 Primal Chaos Realm Supremes were not a match for Tsing Hui, but it was enough to give them a slight sense of security. Fortunately, Tsing Hui's subsequent performance could be said to be a man of his word. After killing the Jade Capital World and the Dark North World, Tsing Hui did not stay in the Divine Wilderness Great World any longer. Instead, he quickly flew towards the teleportation formations of the original Eternal Encampment. It seemed that he intended to leave the Divine Wilderness Great World and continue to deal with the Primal Chaos Realm Supremes of the Jade Capital World and the Dark North World who were guarding outside the teleportation formations. This result made the Primal Chaos Supremes heave a sigh of relief. In my opinion, we shouldn't be too separated during this period of time, lest Tsing Hui have other ideas and attack us one by one. In addition, the forces left behind in the True Sun Great World can also be slightly relaxed. There is also the native True Martial Master of the True Sun Great World. This True Martial Master's battle prowess is extraordinary. We can negotiate with him and allow him to enter the Divine Wilderness Great World to take a share of the loot. In this way, although there is a saying that we are inviting the wolf into the house, it will also make it easier for us to resist Tsing Hui's next move. Time Prime suggested. Those supreme martial artists naturally wouldn't reject this suggestion. One by one, they agreed to it. Everyone, let's start contacting the forces behind you. Although Tsing Hui promised to only attack the people of the Eugene Grand World and the northernmost Grand World, we have to be prepared. I understand. I'll contact Autarch Mengyu right away. All the supreme martial artists agreed and left the small world. At the same time, Time Prime also glanced at Elder I Chen and Elder Lon Xian. You too, if Tsing Hui really wants to kill us all, the final hope lies on the Void Sword Pavilion. The mysterious void world of the Void Sword Pavilion has a powerful formation power. If we combine the power of a dozen primal chaos supremes, we will definitely be able to kill him if we go all out. Therefore, I would like to ask the two of you to be prepared to cooperate with us. Elder I Chen and Elder Lon Xian didn't have a good impression of Tsing Hui, especially Elder Lon Xian, who hadn't found a substitute for the boundary object yet. Hearing Sovereign Time's words, Elder Lon Xian immediately said, "Currently, the Xuanxu world is under Elder Floating Light's control. However, he can't control the Xuanxu world forever. I'll go talk to him right now and get him to hand over the control of the Xuanxu world so that we can cooperate with you sovereigns." "Okay, then we'll have to trouble you, Supreme Lon Xian." Elder Lon Xian nodded and withdrew her consciousness with Elder I Chen. This Tsing Hui is really terrifying. Ancestor Duan Rui, Ancestor White Elephant, Ancestor Divine Dragon Sect, Ancestor 100 Poison, Ancestor Blood Kuan, Supreme Nether Abyss, all the giants in the chaotic realm who could write legends were killed by him. It's terrifying. Elder I Chen didn't forget to pay attention to the battle between Tsing Hui and the supreme martial artists of the Jade Capital World and the Northernmost Sea World when he attended the meeting held by Time Prime. It was because he witnessed the whole thing from beginning to end that he was even more terrified of Tsing Hui. "What's wrong, Elder I Chen? Are you afraid? Have you forgotten that we are the supreme elders of the Void Sword Pavilion? No matter how powerful he is, how dare he kill the supreme elders of the Void Sword Pavilion? Moreover, the Divine Wilderness World earns tens of thousands of objects of carrying Tao every year. Are you willing to give up such a rich profit?" Elder Lon Xian seemed to have seen through Elder I Chen's thoughts and couldn't help but snort. "Of course I'm reluctant. However, Elder Floating Light told me not long ago that the methods Qing Su displayed were definitely not something an ordinary person could possess. He suspected that there was a powerful being behind him. Although our Void Sword Pavilion is impressive, and with the 4 supreme sword techniques, we rank among the top forces below the level of powerful beings. However, if we face a true powerful being, we're still not worth mentioning, a great medium? How is that possible?" Elder Lon Xian sneered. "If he really has a great medium behind him, he would have made it known to everyone long ago. Why would he wait until now? As for Floating Light, I will have a good talk with him. If Tsing Hui defeats other masters of the chaotic realm, he will certainly not allow our Void Sword Pavilion to share the annual profits of the objects of carrying Tao with him in the Divine Wilderness World. His next target will definitely be our Void Sword Pavilion. Therefore, if Time Supreme and the others want to take action, our Void Sword Pavilion will have to help them with all we have." Hearing Elder Lon Xian's words, Elder I Chen also felt that he was a little jittery. He immediately nodded, "You are right. We should talk to Elder Floating Light. Amazing, amazing. The younger generation really surpasses us in time." At this moment, in another attic of the Void Sword Pavilion, Elder Floating Light couldn't help sighing. In the end, he turned to Bai Shuaing and said, "Shuaing, is what you said true? This Tsing Hui has only cultivated for more than 100 years, not even 200 years. "Yes, it's absolutely true." Bai Shuaing nodded heavily. "In fact, the geniuses in our Divine Wilderness World are divided into 3 generations. Master Zhu Zhao is known as the first genius of the older generation, but his talent is nothing in the myriad worlds. In our Void Sword Pavilion, he is only at the level of an ordinary disciple. The second kind is like me, reaching the divine realm in less than 300 years. In the end, I was lucky enough to be chosen by my master, the Lihe Sword Master, and accepted as a disciple." You didn't become the disciple of the Lihe Sword Master because of luck," Elder Floating Light added with a smile. Bai Shuaing smiled slightly and said again, "I'm just making an analogy. I'm the first person of the second generation, but Tsing Hui only took 14 years to cultivate from the longevity realm to the vacuum-shattering realm. This kind of talent is rare even in our Void Sword Pavilion, with the personal guidance of the Sword Master and the support of resources, isn't it?" It's not just rare, it's extremely rare. Resources can make one's cultivation advance by leaps and bounds, but the tempering of one's state of mind and spirit requires enough time to polish. I don't know about others, but under the lineage of the Liha sword master, the most talented sword master Green Pine, took 34 years to go from the longevity realm to the vacuum-shattering realm, more than twice as long as Tsing Hui. Bai Shuaiying nodded. It's precisely because Tsing Hui's cultivation in the longevity realm, the saint realm, and the divine realm that I was surprised that he broke through to the chaotic realm in the following 100 years and became a supreme master. But it wasn't hard for me to accept, because as early as when I broke through to the boundary realm, I faintly had this premonition in my heart. I didn't expect that such a top genius could be born in a place like the divine wilderness great world, elder floating light. There should be more that you can't imagine. In fact, according to my understanding of Tsing Hui, if Tsing Hui continues to grow like this, it won't be difficult for him to cultivate the Origin's sacred body and become a sovereign in 100 or 200 years if he's slow. Therefore, if we can show enough sincerity at this time, stand in the position of Tsing Hui and pull him into our Void Sword Pavilion, it will be immeasurable benefits for our Void Sword Pavilion. Maybe by then, there will be another Sword Master in our Void Sword Pavilion. If it's fast, it will be in 100 or 200 years. If it's slow, it will be in 1,000 years. Sword Master, hearing Bai Shuaiying's words, Elder Floating Light was finally moved. Although he instinctively wanted to deny it, it was not so easy to be called a Sword Master. But thinking back to Bai Shuaiying's detailed introduction to Tsing Hui just now, he actually didn't know how to refute her words. Moreover, in my opinion, Sword Master is not necessarily Tsing Hui's limit. If he can continue to cultivate at this speed, after 10,000 years, it's not impossible for him to become a great divine. At that time, our Void Sword Pavilion may really step into the ranks of the top forces in the chaotic divine realm. A great divine. These 4 words made Elder Floating Light's breathing slightly stagnant. After a while, he breathed heavily and said in a deep voice, "If we really intend to pull him into our Void Sword Pavilion, what should we do now? Take the opportunity now to show the position of our Void Sword Pavilion and stand firmly on Tsing Hui's side. Then, how can we protect the interests of our Void Sword Pavilion in the divine wilderness great world?" Elder Floating Light said. "How many carrier items do our Void Sword Pavilion currently get every year?" The number fluctuates between 1,500 and 2,000. Then, before the rulers come and the interests of the divine wilderness great world are redistributed, I can persuade Tsing Hui to continue to maintain the income of 1,500 to 2,000 for our Void Sword Pavilion. The interests remain unchanged, and our Void Sword Pavilion can have such a powerful sword master. Why not? Elder Floating Light nodded heavily. "Okay, I'll go and persuade Elder Floating Shadow." Besides persuading Elder Floating Shadow, be careful of Elder Chen and Elder Lanxin. Although they belong to our Void Sword Pavilion, they are not of the same lineage as us. I understand. I will control the control of the Xuanchu world with Elder Floating Shadow. Elder Floating Light said with a faint smile on his face. As time goes by, when Sword Master Tsing Hui shows more and more brilliant achievements, I believe that the 2 great elders Chen and Lanxin will eventually change their minds. I also firmly believe in this. Bai Shuaiying nodded slightly. In those years when Tsing Hui was born, those old stubborn people who were not convinced by Tsing Hui but were later left far behind by Tsing Hui until they had to look up to him. She believed that one day, the same scene would reappear on the 2 great elders Chen and Lanxin. Chapter 862. True Sun Great World. Tsing Hui stepped out of the teleportation formation occupied by the northernmost great world. Seeing Tsing Hui, who obviously did not have the characteristics of a cultivator from the northernmost great world, coming out of the teleportation formation, a chaotic realm supreme guarding the teleportation formation was stunned and felt strange. However, before he could ask Tsing Hui about his identity, Tsing Hui attacked. His main purpose of leaving the divine wilderness Great World and coming to the true Sun Great World through the teleportation formation was to start a massacre. Since he was going to start a massacre, there was no need to talk nonsense. As soon as he appeared in the teleportation formation, he stabilized his body and attacked. His body was like a thunderbolt, instantly slashing toward the Chaotic Realm Supreme guarding the teleportation formation. The Chaotic Realm Supreme wanted to ask about Xing Hui's identity, but when he saw Xing Hui attacking without saying anything, he was furious. "Bastard, who are you? How dare you be so presumptuous in front of Ancestor Tian Du?" As he spoke, the world appeared and a vast and majestic pressure pressed down. At the same time, a world god appeared under the condensation of the power of the entire world. Unfortunately, his means were barely enough to deal with the attack of an ordinary Chaotic Realm Supreme, but against Xing Hui, buzz buzz. As invisible ripples spread out, strands of sword chi that had been condensed to the limit sliced through the ancestor of the Tian capital's world to their heart's content. They ripped the ancestor's world to pieces on the spot. At the same time, Qing Su charged forward again, directly smashing through the ancestor's world and charging into the ancestor's world. Stepping into the world, Qing Su rode his sword in the wind, pushing his speed to the limit. As he flew, countless streaks of light shot past him, slicing through the world barrier in the surroundings viciously, causing the barrier to shake. Tiny cracks constantly spread out and spread out. Presumptuous! Ancestor Tian Du roared angrily. The world god appeared and turned into a towering giant over 10,000 meters tall. He aimed at Xing Hui, as if he wanted to grab the space around him and crush it together with space and matter. All the chaotic realms means are the same. They only believe in a pure battle of strength. Xing Hui felt this familiar attack and shuttled out of the confined space with ease. At the same time, he became one with the sword and condensed his power into a point. Like the sharpest sword chi, he instantly pierced through the world god's giant hand. Then, he leaped into the void, crossing over 10,000 kilometers of space and landed on Ancestor Tian Du's boundary object. Just have the world's power surged and wanted to expel him, but he had the world. "Bastard, I want you dead." Seeing that Xing Hui had destroyed his world barrier, Ancestor Tian Du, who did not understand the seriousness of the matter, roared angrily. The world's power surged into Xing Hui's body, as if it wanted to mobilize the world's force to crush Xing Hui into pieces. However, at the center of the world, Qing Su gasped heavily. Afterwards, light shone from his eyes as sword intent erupted. Countless strands of sword chi rushed into the air with his sword intent, directly piercing the sky and tearing the space within several tens of thousand kilometers to pieces. Celestial extinction. The great Tao sealed, and the world's laws retreated. Ancestor Tian Du, who was originally angry at the destruction of the world barrier, suddenly felt that something was wrong. If the great Tao had not been sealed, even if the world barrier had been destroyed, he could rely on the great Tao's law to maintain the world. But now, with the great Tao's law sealing, he, a dignified chaotic realm supreme, had been reduced to the realm of one thought. At best, it was equivalent to having the great Tao's law to form the foundation of the world. In this way, the world barrier had been destroyed, and the world was in danger of collapsing. What kind of power is this? Great Tao divine weapon? Or is it the real great Tao's power? It can actually make the great Tao's law that I'm compatible with retreat? Ancestor Tian Du's eyes flashed with panic. Seeing the second burst of sword chis once again soar into the sky, overtaking the world and tearing out terrifying cracks of varying sizes with diameters of 1,000 to 10,000 kilometers on his world barrier, old Ancestor Tiandu finally felt an intense life and death crisis. Ancestor Deadwood, Ancestor Black Sun, a great enemy is attacking. I can't resist it alone. Quickly come and help me. Ancestor Tian Du roared. His voice spread and quickly alarmed the dozens of chaotic realm supremes around him. As the Scarlet Sun Empire's Heaven Pass Valley was the closest to the Divine Wilderness Great World, there were several world teleportation arrays set up. There were 4 Chaotic Realm Supremes guarding these teleportation arrays. In addition to the Chaotic Realm Supremes who were watching these teleportation arrays from afar, there were more than 10 of them. When everyone saw the battle between Xinghui and Ancestor Tiandu, when they saw Ancestor Tiandu directly bring Xinghui into his world, they thought that the outcome of the battle had been drawn to an end. After all, to most Chaotic Realm Supremes, the power they could unleash in their world was several times stronger than outside. Therefore, although they noticed the abnormality here, they did not pay too much attention to it. But in this short delay, the situation seemed to have taken a 360-degree turn. Ancestor Tiandu was actually forced to ask for help from the other 2 Chaotic Realm Supremes of their northernmost great world. This scene immediately attracted the attention of the 10 Primal Chaos Realm Supremes in the area. What's going on with Tiandu? It seems like he's in danger. The figure that was swallowed into his world just now looked familiar, but with the interference of the spatial fluctuations emitted by the World Teleportation Array, I can't tell who exactly it is. It seems that Tiandu is in pain. Is he really unable to hold on? If that's the case, we can consider seizing his teleportation array. Even if we can't, destroying it is also a good choice. At that time, we just need to destroy the teleportation array that connects the true Sun Great World and the northernmost Great World, and the northernmost Great World will be excluded from the competition. That's only if we have the opportunity. If we don't have the opportunity, we will definitely form an irreconcilable hatred with the other Chaotic Realm Supremes of the northernmost Great World. When that time comes, we will inevitably fall into an endless civil war. How will we have time to go to the Divine Wilderness Great World to plunder the objects of Tao? Just the consumption and losses caused by the civil war alone is enough to give us a headache. The Chaotic Realm Supremes discussed among themselves, but they all looked like they were watching a show. No one had the intention to help. The other 2, Patriarch Deadwood and Patriarch Black Sun, who had received Patriarch Tiandu's request for help, rushed over from the horizon at full speed. However, as one of them was sweeping through the true Sun Great World, while the other was guarding the teleportation array of another world, they rushed over one after the other. The distance between the 2 was at least 20 million kilometers. 20 million kilometers was just a matter of minutes for Primal Chaos Supremes. In a life-and-death battle between Primal Chaos Supremes, it would usually take hours, days, months, or even years. They were already doing their best to travel at this speed. Unfortunately, Xinghui's speed could not be measured by ordinary Chaotic Realm Supremes at all. When he sensed that Patriarch Deadwood, who had taken the lead, was about to close in on Patriarch Tiandu, he immediately unleashed the special characteristics of his coalescence Great Tao to the limit and transformed into a black hole that was similar to a universe singularity. At this moment, Patriarch Tiandu's entire small world had been torn into pieces by his sword energy. Although he relied on the Great Tao Law as a foundation and had no problem holding on for a period of time, it was based on the fact that Xinghui was still maintaining this destructive speed. Now that Xinghui had transformed into a black hole, it was the last straw that broke the camel's back. The entire broken small world began to collapse at an extremely terrifying speed. Patriarch Tiandu, who had been urging Patriarch Deadwood and Patriarch Black Sun a second ago, had a deep despair in his eyes. Then, his body was annihilated and turned into a singularity along with his small world, which was then devoured by Xinghui. The 7th Tao Fruit. After comprehending the coalescence Great Tao, using the supreme celestial technique of blooming flowers in an instant will affect my cultivation. This is the disadvantage. The good thing is that the conditions for using this celestial technique are not as harsh as before, Xinghui said. Then, his gaze locked onto Patriarch Deadwood, who was only a few 100,000 kilometers away from him. When Patriarch Deadwood saw Patriarch Tiandu's body crumble and his small world turn into a singularity, which was then devoured by Xinghui, his body came to an abrupt halt. However, he was still in disbelief, or rather, unwilling to believe that Patriarch Tian, a chaotic realm supremacy of the same level as him, had died just like that. Thus, he did not immediately turn around to escape or activate the teleportation technique. In this short moment of delay, Tsing-Hui had already become one with his sword and turned into a sword ray. In an instant, he pierced through the void and shot into Patriarch Deadwood's small world. At this time, the fall of Patriarch Tian had brought quite a bit of shock to the surrounding sovereigns. They all looked at each other in dismay, not knowing what to do. Soon, Ku Long Supreme, who had previously fought with Tsing-Hui, seemed to have thought of something. He said sternly, "Could it be that person? But, a year ago, even though he defeated me, severely injured me, and destroyed my boundary artifact, the power he displayed was far from that level. At least, he couldn't kill a primal chaos realm supreme within 100 breaths of time. But now, there's news." At this moment, the chaotic realm supremacy of the illusion world, Nightmare Supreme, suddenly spread the news. "I received a message. The chaotic realm supremacy just now is a native cultivator of the divine wilderness great world. His name is Tsing-Hui. He's the supreme elder of a sect called the Hunyuan sword sect in the divine wilderness great world. The chaotic realm supremes of the northernmost great world and the jade capital great world destroyed the Hunyuan sword sect that he had established. Now, he's taking revenge, so it's a personal grudge. Then it's none of our business. Let's just watch the show." That's right. The jade capital great world and the northernmost great world asked for it. Who else can they blame? The chaotic realm supremes, who were originally worried, relaxed when they heard this. No one knew if they were really relaxed or if they were just hoping for a fluke. After all, the strength that Tsing-Hui had displayed at this moment was almost above that of an ordinary chaotic realm supremacy. If someone wanted to deal with Tsing-Hui, not to mention whether he would respond, at least by doing so, they would definitely offend Tsing-Hui. If they really fought, the first person that Tsing-Hui would kill would definitely be the person who made this request. Under such circumstances, how many people would be willing to sacrifice themselves for justice? Chapter 863. The following battle did not have much suspense. The Jade Capital World and the Northernmost World each had 2 to 3 chaotic realm supremes in the True Sun Great World. These people were killed by Tsing-Hui one by one. After killing the chaotic realm supremes of these two worlds, Tsing-Hui further destroyed the transmission formation in the True Sun Great World that connected these two worlds, as well as the transmission formation in the True Sun Great World that connected to the Divine Wilderness Great World. Although his actions aroused some suspicions and uneasiness, these chaotic realm supremes were afraid of the terrifying battle power that Tsing-Hui had displayed when he killed more than 10 chaotic realm supremes of the Jade Capital World and the Northernmost World. In the end, they suppressed their restless thoughts. In addition, the transmission formation in the Northernmost World and the Jade Capital World were broken. It was equivalent to having one less competitor for more than 10 chaotic realm supremes of the two worlds. From a comprehensive point of view, the advantages outweighed the disadvantages. Under such circumstances, when Tsing-Hui killed the chaotic realm supremes of the two worlds and returned to the Divine Wilderness Great World, those chaotic realm supremes who had vaguely united to attack Tsing-Hui finally calmed down. But this peace lasted for less than 2 months, it was broken again. Time Supreme and Illusion Supreme escaped from the Divine Wilderness Great World in a panic and brought news that shocked and enraged all the chaotic realm supremes stationed in the True Sun Great World. Tsing-Hui once again attacked the chaotic realm supremes of the Tai Hua Great World, the Illusion Great World, and other forces. First, he quietly killed 2 chaotic realm supremes. It was not until he attacked the 3rd chaotic realm supremes that the violent battle waves were transmitted. Thus, everyone became aware of his insidious means. After realizing that Tsing-Hui intended to kill them all, the remaining chaotic realm supremes were furious. When they wanted to unite, the Void Sword Pavilion chose to remain neutral. Even the two Supreme Elders Yi Chen and Lan Xian were said to have been stopped by the Supreme Elder's floating light and sweeping shadow of the Void Sword Pavilion and could not join their alliance. Originally, there were only 11 Primal Chaos Supremes left. Now, 4 of them were gone, leaving only 7 behind. The 7 of them held a meeting, but before they could discuss whether they should join forces to deal with Tsing Hui had already killed the Primal Chaos Supreme he had ambushed. Moreover, he did not stop at all as he charged towards their immature alliance. In the end, 2 of them had escaped using teleportation techniques. While Tsing Hui was killing the other Primal Chaos Supremes, Time Supremes and Illusion Supremes had rushed into the World Teleportation Array and escaped to the True Sun Great World. As for the remaining 3 Primal Chaos Supremes, needless to say, everyone could guess what would happen to them. For a time, a total of 13 Chaotic Realm Supremes were still entrenched in the True Sun Great World. Except for the 2 Supreme Elders of the Void Sword Pavilion, everyone was in danger. There was almost no need for a special call. In less than half an hour after Time Supremes and Illusion Supremes spread the news, the 11 Supremes had spontaneously joined forces. Even Supreme True Marshal had no time to take care of them. Everyone, we've all been tricked by that bastard called Qing Su. Under the guise of avenging the Hunyuan sword sect, he's killed a total of 15 chaotic sovereigns on our side right now. We don't even know where Sovereign Immeasurable and Sovereign Hongbo, who fled with their teleportation techniques, have gone. Right now, we only have 13 sovereigns left on our side. Even if we find Sovereign Immeasurable and Sovereign Hongbo, we'll only be able to expand our group to 15 people at most. Supreme Time Supreme's expression was full of exhaustion and anger at being deceived. 15 is the best result. In fact, don't forget that Supreme True Marshal of the True Sun Great World is still resisting. Supreme True Marshal has been constantly increasing his body size during this period of time, as if he no longer cares about his future as a world protector. In just a dozen years, his body has grown from 240,000 kilometers to 350,000 kilometers. Although the new increase in body size can't be converted into pure combat strength so quickly, among all of us, only Supreme Time, Supreme Mengyu, and Daoist ancestor Qiu Dao are confident of defeating him. Supreme Yi Huan muttered in a low voice. In any case, we can't easily give up on the benefits of the Divine Wilderness Great World's treasure. Overall, there is still good news. Back then, there were 16 Primal Chaos Supremes in the Divine Wilderness Great World, excluding the Void Sword Pavilion. In other words, Tsing Hui's strength is still insufficient to face 16 Primal Chaos Supremes at the same time. This is also the reason why he chose to defeat us one by one. Although there are only 13 of us left, in terms of fighting strength, we are not necessarily inferior to the 16 Supremes of the Divine Wilderness Great World. In other words, if the 13 of us join forces, we still have the confidence to defeat Tsing Hui. Supreme Mengyu said slowly. As the strongest of all the Supremes, she was almost equivalent to 3 Primal Chaos Supremes. Her words still carried great weight in the hearts of everyone. Supreme Time looked at Supreme Mengyu, who was wearing a rainbow-colored feather robe and exuding a graceful and luxurious aura, and felt a little more confident in his heart. In my opinion, there is no time to lose. Let's enter the Divine Wilderness Great World and take advantage of the fact that he has not recovered his strength from the battle just now. We will not give him any chance to breathe and directly kill him. We are not waiting for Supreme Immeasurable and Supreme Hongbo. One of the Supremes said, if we wait for the 2 of them to arrive, our chances of victory will at least be higher. It is always good to have 2 more Supremes. We can't wait. Who knows where the 2 of them have teleported to with their teleportation technique? Supreme Mengyu said. Very well, Supreme Time was about to agree, but at this moment, a wave of spatial fluctuations rapidly spread out, affecting a small part of the True Sun Great World. Our world passage to the Tai Hua Great World has been destroyed. Supreme Withered Dragon's heart sank. Our world passage to the illusory great world has also been destroyed. Supreme Hunyuan also abruptly raised her head and looked towards the horizon. Its true sun great world's native supreme true martial and supreme flame river. Supreme Meng Yu's eyes flashed with fury. True martial, you really don't know what's good for you. Do you think I can't kill you? You actually dared to cut off our escape route. Of the three native supremes of the true sun great world, Supreme Flame River had long been beaten to a pulp. He had already escaped using his teleportation technique several years ago, hiding somewhere to recuperate. On the other hand, Supreme True Martial had relied on his own strength and the advantage of being at the primal chaos level to tangle with Supreme Meng Yu. However, it was Supreme Meng Yu who had suppressed Supreme True Martial most of the time. But now, these two Supremes had actually taken advantage of the time when Supreme Meng Yu and the others were gathered in the Crimson Sun Empire's Skyfall Valley to destroy the spatial passage they had established in the True Sun Great World. This was simply preposterous. To resist foreign aggression, we must first pacify our internal affairs. True Sun Great World is our bridgehead for the Divine Wilderness Great World. We cannot let it continue to be chaotic because of the existence of two little rats. Everyone, I think we should make a move first and get rid of these two little rats. How about it? Supreme Meng Yu's delicate and graceful face was filled with coldness. She was the strongest among them, so her words naturally carried a lot of weight. Even Supreme Time, who could not wait to take advantage of Tsing Hui's weakness, could not refuse her request. He could only nod and say, "All right, then let's get rid of Supreme True Martial and Supreme Flame River first. Let's go." As soon as Supremacy Meng Yu finished speaking, she soared into the sky and charged towards Supremacy True Martial and Supremacy Flame River. However, before they could attack Supreme True Martial and Supreme Flame River, a figure suddenly appeared in front of them. It was none other than Tsing Hui. What? Why are you in such a hurry to leave instead of discussing how to deal with me? The Sovereign of Time sensed that Qing Su had not appeared in the teleportation formation between the two worlds in the Valley of Heaven's Pass. Instead, he had appeared where the Flame River Sovereign, the True Martial Sovereign, and the others were. He immediately thought of something, and his face changed. You're working with the True Martial Sovereign and the Flame River Sovereign? If you can work together, why can't we? True Sun Great World is the main culprit behind the invasion of your Divine Wilderness Great World, yet you, if they're willing to admit their mistakes and voluntarily join our Divine Wilderness Great World, why can't they become our subordinate forces? You, alright, enough nonsense. Tsing Hui, is it? You've killed a dozen or so Primal Chaos Realm Supremes on our side with sneaky methods, but if you think that's enough to stop us, then you're sorely mistaken. Everyone, no more nonsense. Attack together and injure him severely. Furthermore, I'll temporarily raise my Primal Chaos Realm to level 60 and use Dimensional Lock to lock him down. I won't let him escape before our eyes. Level 60. Supreme Time, Supreme Huan, Supreme Ku Long, Supreme Qi Rui, and the others were shocked and they heard Supreme Meng Yu's words. One had to know that the majority of their Primal Chaos Realm experts were only at level 44, and this level was mostly due to the large amount of Dao-bearing treasures they had collected from the Divine Wilderness Great World. Otherwise, with nearly 10 Primal Chaos Realm Supremes in a Great World, every one of them above level 30, the annual expenditure would reach an astonishing 3,000. This number definitely exceeded the production limit of Taihua Great World and Illusory Great World. Even if they were all at level 44, to raise their dimensional lock from level 44 to level 60, they would have to waste a total of 1,600 Dao-bearing treasures. This was a year's worth of Dao-bearing treasures produced by many Great Worlds. Divided equally among 8 or 9 Supremes, it was equivalent to 8 or 9 years' worth of income. Even for Primal Chaos Realm Supremes, this was a huge loss. After all, income did not equal savings. A wage earner with a monthly salary of 10,000 and an annual salary of 120,000 would still feel heartache when faced with the loss of an additional 100,000. An annual salary of 120,000 did not mean that they would be able to save an additional 100,000. There were too many additional expenses. If they still had car loans, mortgage loans, parents, and children to support them, they would be thankful if they could save 10 or 20,000 every year. Supreme Mengyu was willing to raise her primal chaos realm to level 60 and use the dimensional lock to deal with Xinghui. This fully demonstrated her determination. Alright, today, we will risk our lives to accompany you. If we do not take advantage of this opportunity to kill this brat, we might not have another chance in the future. We will also miss out on the bountiful benefits of the divine wilderness great world. Even if the rulers still have 80 years to come, this is still a loss of 20 to 30,000 Dao-bearing treasures. Everyone, let us do our best. This is our only chance. Don't care about morality. Let's attack together and kill. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.